Welcome to the 50th episode of the Nerdom and Other Nonsense Anime Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Spring 2018's 5th and 6th week of shows. At the end, we'll be deciding on any mid-season cuts and replacements. As always, we include timestamps in the description of the YouTube video and podcast feed if you only want to hear about one or two specific shows, since we will be spoiling everything about everything. My name is Leo, and this week's episode of Hinamatsuri was very inspiring for me, so I've decided that I'm selling my TV. If anyone wants to buy it, please contact me at lollyyakuza@hotmail.com. And also with me today are, as always, Bcom and Kat.
Hey, what's up?
Hey.
Doing good. How about you guys?
How long have you had that email address, Leo?
Let's see. Ever since I was a young lolly, I'm actually like a reverse trap now.
Nice.
Yeah, this is our 50th episode. Leo, did you ever think we would get this far?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Had
You
faith.
had confidence.
Well, I mean, I felt like our dying goal was to make an anime podcast that stuck around. So I figured like you and me were just going to do this until it literally killed us or something.
Basically, yes. It's pretty exciting to get this far, though. 50 is like a pretty decent milestone for a podcast. It means like you're serious enough to have stuck around for a while.
Yeah. We're
a
holding
lot of
our
podcasts
own.
fizzle out before that.
We're like putting
Yeah,
our
so,
flag in the ground. We're like, none of y'all are taking this away. This is our spot.
And I think we're just over a year old for the anime podcast too.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. We got something cool. We got a nice 5-star review.
Ooh, all right.
Ooh.
Oh my goodness. Look at this. Okay, so this 5-star
I know
review.
it's a miracle, right? It's a miracle for our 50th episode.
It is. This 5-star review is called Give Cat Some Love by Queen Inu, who I've talked to in the chat several times. She's sweet. Okay, here's the review. I love the show. You guys are insanely funny. My favorite host is Kat. She's awesome, especially with her points of view. Leo is pretty awesome too. He has some good insights and offers good points when you guys are discussing anime. Bcom is awesome too, but I want to get Kat and Leo some love. Great show, guys. Keep it up. That's right. You're a sideline, Bcom. No longer are we relegated to the Shadowland.
Kat, you said she's so sweet, so I just feel like she just threw the Bcom there on the end just to be like, it's kind of nice.
It's funny. She actually messaged me about this, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I gave Kat and Leo some love, and I guess I kind of included you."
I called it. I so called that.
It was really funny. But yeah, Queen, thank you so much for that 5-star review. I really appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you.
You guys,
And by the way, if you've been enjoying our podcast for a while, and if you listen to us on iTunes, please head over there, leave us a review, and we'll read it out and have fun with it like we always do. So yeah,
of course. But I think it's it's still Kat. It's always Kat. Kat's always the first one to talk, apparently.
It's just because I'm awesome. That's the only reason. Okay.
You just have a knack for locking either the Monday or the Sunday show of the first anime of the week.
yeah.
I guess so, yeah. All right. So we're going to start off with Mahou Shoujo Ore, episode 5, On Vacation. So it's clear from the very start of this episode that this is going to be different from the episodes before, because it's not any of the normal. I know you did, Leo. Okay. Because they are in the production studio debating the colors on those robot brothers, the Fujimoto brothers. Mm-hmm. And no one who's normally in the show is in here. It's all just people who are producing the show, basically. The producer points out that the colors are the same as the Osumatsu brothers, which I don't think they actually say the Osumatsu brothers, but it's pretty obvious what they mean. And he's like, there's certain things you can and can't do in this industry. Then they mentioned the Osumatsu brothers ripped it off first, which I did not know. I think
that was just a joke. That's just a joke.
I mean, it could be the case. Like, I tried to look it up, but I couldn't find anything. It wouldn't surprise me.
Osumatsu goes back to like the 60s, so no. There's no way they ripped off these guys from Mahou Shoujo Ore.
No, I mean, they might have ripped it off from someone else before them. Not that they literally ripped it off from Mahou Shoujo Ore.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Okay, so then the storyboard for episode 5 gets leaked, and the staff starts to panic and has to scrap everything and start over. And they have this little joke in there where they're like, they didn't get permission to leak it first? Like, and I'm like, so even in Japan, like, leaked. Like, yeah, shit happens. Then they talk about how the production committee has brought in a team of 4 miracle storyboarders, and they show this silhouette. To me, that seemed like it was a Generation of Miracles joke, but I'm not 100% sure. What did you guys think?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Like, they definitely just built up these people as, like, these hotshot, like, people you call in to come fix your script for, like, a boatload of money at the last minute. It was pretty funny, honestly.
Yeah,
my brain shut down. I couldn't take it.
You just weren't paying attention. You're such a baby.
I couldn't.
Well, okay, you just can't handle meta. You probably didn't like. Did you like Anime Guitarist at all? Because I know.
Oh, loved it.
So here's the problem. Like, Mahou Shoujo Ore has like, Mahou Shoujo Ore has barely like established its own characters and its own plot. And then in episode 5, it goes ahead and does this huge meta commentary episode on the anime industry. And then, like, the 2 main characters show up, like, right at the very end of the show for, like, 5 seconds. And, like, in Anime Guitars, it worked because, like, they built the meta the entire time. Like, it was very clear about what the show was trying to do. Mahou Shoujo Ore is like, why are we even doing this episode? Like, it felt like an OVA episode instead of like episode 5 of what the series should have been. So that's why, for me, like, it also felt very out of place. And I understand why Leo was frustrated with it.
It did
like,
feel
and was wondering,
out of
like,
place.
when is this going to get to the point?
I agree that it felt out of place, but I did enjoy it. I was never bored throughout the episode, and I thought it made cute jokes. It's some of those jokes where you point at them and you're like, haha, and like they wouldn't be funny if you watch it a second time. But it's funny, right? Like at one point they make a joke where they're talking about so basically the producer of the anime turns into a Godzilla monster, and the government is trying to figure out like, how did this happen? How did he turn into a Godzilla monster? And he's trying to play like Pokemon Go on his phone on a bridge because there's one of those like special events or whatever, and he falls off. Like they thought he committed suicide. But no, he falls off while playing Pokemon Go and falls into the river and becomes the Godzilla monster because he like fuses with the demons in the river or some bullshit. It's all very ridiculous, but
yeah, and some government official dude is like, "Oh no, if we had only put up warning signs on that bridge."
But yeah, so this hybrid Godzilla weird monster thing is heading towards Suginami because even in death, like the producer whose name is Chiba is driven like to return these key frames. Like he has to do it even though he's already dead. So the government is trying to help the anime team finish the episode because they think that will satisfy like the weird Godzilla thing to stop trying to destroy everything. And then they start trying to decide, like, why did he already destroy this one area? Because he didn't destroy anything else. And then apparently they found a black list of staff in his car. And one of the guys wanted to go to a doujinshi trade show right before a major deadline in the show. And Shiba had written next to his name, like, stop at all costs. So it's just his absolute fury at the staffer just made him destroy this entire area of town. Then they make a quick joke about understaffing in the anime industry and, like, having to hire shitty people, basically. But yeah, they make a lot of inside baseball jokes about the anime industry that if you're new to anime, you may not even get them, honestly. There's a lot of tiny little things in here. Yeah, no. At the end, it does seem like they're going to fail to be able to deliver the episode on time. They're panicking. They joke that they didn't evacuate the animators from the town because it's basically just a town full of production studios because all anime scheduled this week would have to be canceled. And then the government's like, don't they produce anything in advance? And they're like, never.
So true. Unless you're like Kyoto Animation, you don't do that.
Yeah. Then at this point, Saki and Sakio jump in and just basically whoop the monster in like 2 seconds and then just leave. And they're like, bye. And then as the episode closes, they're like, oh, we'll have wardrobe malfunctions next time. I'm like, okay. But yeah, no, it was mostly kind of a random and ridiculous episode. I personally love like random and ridiculous things. I had fun with it. Mm-hmm. If they continued to do this like several more times, it wouldn't be fun anymore, though. I will admit
right,
that.
Yeah, this was basically a one-off kind of thing, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that made me laugh is that, like, at some point in the episode, this, like, American envoy, like, ambassador or whatever, comes into the picture, and she's just, like, this super fat blonde woman who says that, like, she's talking about the American leader, and she's like, he's a raging bull who makes all of our decisions for us. And I was like, damn, Japan, that's a scathing commentary.
Well, I didn't even notice that. Looking back, you're right. Yeah. They probably are making a comment on Trump. I love it when anime makes comments on like American politics, which happens weirdly often.
Yeah. It does happen pretty often. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I don't know. What did you think about this, Leo?
I made it 9 minutes before I had to start skipping it because I was bored out of my fucking mind.
Yeah.
I didn't find it at all amusing. I was like, this, God damn it. I don't like the rest of the show anyways, but...
All right. Nice to know.
Well, we'll get into the next episode because I actually had more problems with the next episode.
Oh, my God.
Oh, boy.
We're going to have the
episode 6
PC
is called
wrap.
Hot Springs Business.
Okay.
And that right there tells you everything he had wrong with it.
Well, actually, no. Well, so in the previous episode, right, they kept making these jokes about how the next episode was really taxing on the animation staff, which is why they made like a weird meta episode instead, like on the fly, because that's like they were rushing to get like episode 6 work done when episode 5 like they didn't care about. So let's see if they were actually telling the truth in the meta way. And then when I watched this episode, I was like, no. There wasn't any like special animation in this episode. It didn't look good. Like, no. It also starts off, so like Saki and Sakio are going to a hot spring. And when Saki gets there, like she's talking with Sakio and she gets really worried that Sakio, when they're sleeping together that night, like might transform into a guy and rape her. In his guy form.
Oh, but you make it sound like it's some terrifying thing that should be like
it is
sad. Come on, you know it was a good joke. Like when they have her.
It's not a good joke. It's not.
You're such a baby.
Like that's where we differ.
Stuff.
Like I understand that like Fujoshi loved this joke, but it's not a good joke.
It's fine. It's
like I don't like this joke at all. Like it's I don't like if you're gonna make a rape joke, like take that joke, look at it. Throw in the garbage, write a different joke. That's what you should do.
You don't like any rape jokes. And I will admit, sometimes...
Pretty much no, because they're almost always terrible.
I feel like rape jokes can be funny, but if they're handled in a decent way... Yeah. I don't know. It's just all
like
about
this
how
one has like
casually-
the added absurdity that like they're both girls who transform into men. So like there's like a layer of abstraction, but at the end of the day, like they show her like crying in bed while Sakio is like smoking a cigarette after having raped her.
Cry. It's like the joke cry. It's the same cry that all people in anime do when they're trying to make a joke, right? I don't know.
She's like turned away from the camera, huddled up in bed, crying.
But you know, it's not supposed to be a serious scene. Like you.
I don't know. Well, yes, I know it's not supposed to be a serious scene, but like I don't think the joke is worth telling, regardless. Like basically, is where I come down on it.
Okay.
So after that, like hot springs hijinks ensue, and like Saki accidentally stays in the girls' springs too long, and they change over to being for men. So Mohiro walks in, and so Saki's in her magical guy form and can like barely contain herself from staring at Mohiro's dick.
She is thirsty. Like I love that they even show her like obvious line of sight to his dick.
Yeah.
I was like, yes,
just staring at it. She's just generally wishing she could throw herself all over him. In fact, she has to stare at him because she has to maintain her love power so she doesn't transform back to being a girl.
Which I'm pretty sure love power is
so
just
she's
like
keep
code
that
word.
boner up.
Yeah, it's code word for like horny. Like she has to stay horny.
Yeah, horniness.
Basically.
And Mohiro's got the mute speaker thing going on where he can't say anything. It's like, started to get like pretty irritating this episode. It's like there were some like really creepy noises coming out of his mouth this episode instead of like saying words. And I was just like, at this point, like, this character kind of sucks. Like, I don't know. Like, there's nothing to him. The whole joke is that he like has no brain cells and he can't even speak, and things just happen to him. And it's just like kind of getting old for me at this point, I guess. I don't know. Sakio is in the other hot spring by herself, and she has to throw herself into cold water because she has a raging boner for Saki. She's in her male form, and she's just got a huge heart on. Mohiro and Saki go through the hot springs triathlon, which is like a hot spring, and then you go to the sauna, and then you go to the cold bath, and you rinse and repeat. And I can confirm this is really, really fun to do at a Japanese onsen. I totally did this, and it like makes your body freaks out on you, but it's super fun.
Well, I
feels
have to
really
imagine,
good.
like, don't you kind of feel like you're gonna pass out or something? Because like,
If you stay in the sauna for too long, for sure. And the cold water is so freezing cold when you come at it out of like a really hot sauna. But like those like huge temperature changes like just make like your body feel like tingly and stuff, and like really refreshed, and then like really like, I don't know, like you're just treating yourself basically to like weird shifts in temperature. It feels really good.
okay. Noted.
So they stay in the sauna so long that Saki is just like destroyed. Like she's basically on the verge of passing out and dying. They make an homage to this famous scene from the original Ashito no Joe, where she's pencil drawn in all black and white saying, "I burned for you. I burned myself out." Which was kind of funny.
Didn't you save that as a new like a meme?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. It's good stuff. So Sakio eventually figures out that Saki must be in the sauna, but has to fight some squirrel dudes who are staying at the onsen before she can save her. And Saki finally like loses consciousness and transforms back into her girl form. She passes out on the floor of the sauna, and then Sakio just like makes it there just in time to distract Mohiro from like seeing her and carries Saki out. And then the episode ends with Saki singing like terrible tandem karaoke with Mohiro. And to be honest, I'd be fine with never watching this show again. Like, to me, it feels like this show had one joke, but had no idea what to do after telling that one joke. And that's why we got like a meta commentary episode 5 and then a Hot Springs episode 6. Because it has no idea what it wants to do.
I still really like this show, but I understand that you guys don't anymore because, I don't know, it's not your thing. And that's why I made it a soft lock, because I figured if you guys were really hating it, I didn't want to subject it on you. I want to say...
No, you shouldn't worry about that. I don't.
Whatever.
I know you don't.
Fuck off. I like the show. I think it's hilarious. I enjoy every second of it. There were parts of this episode where I was shrieking with laughter, especially the rape joke. But that's just me.
I'm not totally against keeping this show, honestly. But like, yeah, I don't know. I just think it's kind of lost right now.
No,
when it,
I
like,
totally
doesn't know what
think
it's
there
doing.
are probably shows we could cover better, especially since you guys aren't enjoying it. I don't have a problem with you guys replacing it. I just want to make it known that this is not as shitty a show as they're making it sound. Also, this episode actually left me with questions. If Saki falls out of love, does that mean that she won't be able to transform anymore? Like if she doesn't love Mohiro anymore?
I would suspect so.
If every time either of them gets horny, they transform, then they both always have to have sex as guys, right? Like they can never have sex as girls.
Yeah, you would think.
Also, doesn't that mean that that's how her mom has been having sex all these years?
Unless she had like a girl before she was a magical girl, then yeah.
Because I mean,
but yeah, I guess so.
So now I'm just imagining Saki's mom with her husband.
Maybe she got artificial insemination.
Maybe.
How does that work when your ovaries start transforming into like male genitalia and back get?
Yeah,
like, how
what's
does
it
that
like
work?
when she's like 7 months along? And she transforms. What happens?
I don't know how any of this. I don't think they really thought this through.
It's entertaining.
I don't think we're
though.
supposed to think this through.
I doubt it. I highly doubt it.
Well, I did anyway.
We should move on.
Okay. No,
Yeah, there are some crazy, horrifying questions that come out of that show.
yeah, pretty much.
All right, so Kat, you got the next one.
Oh shit. Okay. All right, so Golden Kamui, episode 5, race. So Ashirpa and Shiraishi, is it Shiraishi or Shiraishi? I can't say his name very easily.
That's correct. Shiraishi.
His name does something weird to my mouth, and I don't want to say it. I don't know. Shiraishi.
It's technically like Shiraishi, but so like you would pronounce it quickly, it's like Shiraishi.
Escape artist guy. I'm like, who the hell are you guys talking about?
Yeah, so Ashirpa and Shiraishi go to the 7th Division HQ, which is where they're holding Sugimoto. Ashirpa kind of wonders for a second that, she's thinking about how Sugimoto's immortal quality must come from him being unafraid of death, basically. And that she's sure he's still alive in there, because Shiraishi is like, he might be dead. Like, we might not actually have to go get him. Then it kind of flashes to Sugimoto wrestling with the twin brothers that were attacking him from the end of the previous episode. And he does this series of just sick double hits on the pair of them. Like, whoa, whoa, bam, 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 bam. Like, both brothers are ordered by the commander to stay away from Sugimoto after this, because they're like, y'all almost killed him, and we want him alive because we want to know where these skins are. So stay the fuck away. Shiraishi, I cannot say his name, offers to get in through the window if they can get one of the bars off, because apparently he can dislocate his joints, but I really think he can only dislocate his shoulders, because that's what he does basically. But he wants some of the gold in exchange. Ashirpa is really quick to agree and say that she never wanted the gold, but I kind of remember her saying that she would take some of the gold, so I don't know how much I buy that. Ashirpa agrees with Shiraishi.
It's more about revenge for her, though. It's more about revenge than gold for her. So I kind of bought that.
I guess. Ashirpa,
it's just like in A Place Further in the Universe when she left all the money behind at the end because it was about finding out. Never mind. Okay, never mind.
Oh my god! Do not bring this up.
Okay, people care about money. Money is important in life. I hate all this bullshit. The money doesn't matter to me, bitch. The money matters. The money always matters. I don't care how sentimental you are. Okay.
Says the auditor.
And the thing is, the money really mattered to her father as well. Her father died trying to get that money.
Well, the money was so they could buy weapons.
Yeah, it was for the
Ainu
Ainu people to rebel against the Japanese oppression they were suffering under. So for Ashirpa to say she doesn't care about the money is a little bit suspect, I would say, as well. A little bit idealistic, I would say.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. So Ashirpa greases Shiraishi up in bare fat, and he gets in the jail cell. And he has what's that noise when he slides in all greased up? Isn't it
it's so good?
Or something?
It's gloop, gloop, gloop.
It's a really good noise. And then he has this look on his face, and he it's almost like a calm, he looks like he should have sunglasses on while he does it. I don't know. And he's just like, I thought I'd drop in, and I'm like, bitch, what the fuck?
And he cracks his shoulder back into place, it makes that noise too.
Yeah, no, that hurts like a motherfucker. I respect him for being able just to pop him back in. Retar scares the horses off at this point because they smell him. Meanwhile, Shiraishi is getting the handcuffs off Sugimoto. Then one of the brothers comes in to kill Sugimoto while the other kind of eggs him on from outside the door, which I'm not really sure why they both didn't just fucking come in at this point. Probably only because
one of them was keeping a lookout.
That's
okay. One was keeping a lookout in case the commander showed up.
Because I just kept thinking this is so convenient for the story. Then there's a sort of time skip, and they don't tell us what's going on. They just show the commander coming into the room, and it looks like Sugimoto has been stabbed in the gut, but the twin brother is dead. So they make Sugimoto promise to cooperate and tell them where the skins are in exchange for giving him medical treatment. Then they quickly get him the fuck off in a sling thing to the surgeon. Sugimoto has this line which is really interesting where the general tries to get him to tell them all his information now, in case he dies on the table. And Sugimoto gets this really fucking intense look on his face, and he's like, I'll never die. And I'm like, damn, this is why I love him.
It's pretty badass.
And then while they take Sugimoto to the hospital, the commander notices that the twin's body has like a deep wound on the hand that he held the knife in, and his belt has all these bloody fingerprints all over it. And he's like, he stole the guts. So Sugimoto stabbed the twin, then pulls out his guts,
cut him open,
acts like they're his guts. So basically, Sugimoto isn't hurt at all. The general rides after him to stop the escape. Asirpa shoots down the general's horse, but then he just rolls off like nothing fucking happened. And as someone who
I loved that so much.
It was really cool.
As someone
it was like Terminator 2 or something, where he just like keeps coming no matter what.
Where he's just like chasing down the police car. I was like,
yes.
I thought the exact same thing.
As someone who has ridden horses a lot growing up, like you don't just roll off a horse and get back up and run down the street. No, that's not the way that works.
You are if you've had half your brain blown away.
I
maybe
guess.
all the pain sensors in his brain are gone.
But yeah, he tries to run after him. Eventually, they lose the commander because, I mean, even if you're a crazy motherfucker, you can't run as fast as a horse. So eventually, they lose him. Also, apparently, we find out that the commander has been wearing the skins around himself just 24/7, just to be safe.
Yep.
He's like fanning himself. He's like, oh, it's so hot. He's like fanning himself with the skins as they watch like their headquarters burn down. It's like, oh god.
Yeah, it's like I bet so.
Shirashi, she is there in disguise, and he's just like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Well, so was that Shiraishi? Because I could not. That was one of my like.
Yeah, it was him in disguise. You see him later still in the same uniform.
Yeah, because that was one of my kind of complaints about this episode because I loved the escape scene. It was really epic. But then they don't really tell you, like, one, how Shiraishi helps Sugimoto when the twin comes in. Like, does he help him stab him? Does he keep hidden? And then two, they don't really show how Shiraishi escapes. So I was kind of like, what happened? Like, obviously he got out because you see him later.
I assume he just went out the way he came in. Yeah.
Yeah. Then there's this part in there about that weird fat forehead guy. What is his name?
I have it up here. It's Tatsuma Ushiyama.
Okay, we're gonna call him Tatsuma. So
okay.
Yeah, so they have this part where Tatsuma is now working for this guy called Nagakura, who's with the Shinsengumi. They go to try and get the help of a band of bandits, but then they try to get them on their side for all of 20 seconds, and then they're just like, well, this isn't working, and then they just slaughter all of the bandits. I'm like, I don't know if you really tried very hard. I don't know what the point of that was. I guess the Shinsengumi have this plot to take over Hokkaido and are hoping to use the treasure to help them fund that, which is why they are after it too. So now there are 3 players. There's Sugimoto, the Shinsengumi, and the police force. I love the part in the episode where Asirpa finally tries miso for the very first time, and she has this face, and she goes to eat it, and it's all scrunched up, and she's just like, ugh. And then she actually likes it, and Sugimoto is so happy that she likes it. Like, I don't think I've ever seen him.
She says something like, this shit tastes delicious.
It was good. They show a lot of survival stuff in this episode again, like how you can suck on these vines for water, different hunting techniques. It's always interesting to see those little parts. Yeah, it was a good episode. I don't know. Especially the escape scene was really damn epic. I will say that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Leo, what was your favorite part of the episode? Because I think it was my favorite part too.
The part where Asirpa throws horse meat on Sugimoto's face, and then the dog is just in the background looking over his shoulder and just eyeballing the shit out of this meat. If you've ever owned a dog, you're just like, oh shit, they got that shit down. It just cracked me up. I just couldn't stop up. And the meat starts sliding and it falls off, and his eyes just follow it the whole time.
It was such a good scene. I loved that face.
It was. There's just a lot of people been added this episode also. I'd just like to note.
Yeah?
Lots of players in this game.
Definitely.
Yeah, the new Shinsengumi guy is also another historical member of the Shinsengumi. He was the captain of the 2nd troop of the Shinsengumi. So All the Shinsengumi people are like real historical figures, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, one of my other favorite scenes was like when it looked like a Serpa was going to hug him, but then basically just like ends up choking him out instead. That was very unsuspecting. I thought they were going to have a moment, and then she just starts beating the shit out of him. I'm like, okay.
All right, tell us about episode 6.
Okay, it's called Hunter's Soul. There's just a very brief opening with Nihei's Hunter's Soul getting erect. If you know what I mean.
Weird.
I mean, he definitely knows. He makes very clear what he means over the course of this episode.
So apparently he's called his dick Hunter's Soul, and it gets erect just all the time. Just constant erection. He must be like popping Viagra like Skittles or something. But anyway, he's popping these boners because it's at getting the chance to hunt down the last wolf that managed to survive and outsmart the humans' traps. The first half of the episode is pretty basic. Serpa and Seiichi continue to hunt the deer that they only wounded. The first ambush on the resting deer didn't work, and the second time Seiichi suffers from some PTSD when aiming down sight at the deer, but Red Tower shows up and like takes out the deer. The night before, Genjiro throws his hat in the fire, signifying that he has parted ways with the army and is embracing his hunter's blood, because apparently his family name is from a hunter's family. Nihei talks about erections and boners some more.
A lot. So many boners.
Almost as many boners as there was in Mahou Shoujo Ore.
Almost,
the hot spring episode.
These are more like figurative boners. Actually, no, they're probably real boners too.
Yeah,
we just don't see them close up.
Let's be honest. That guy is having some real boners sometimes because he has some looks on his face. You're just like, okay.
Yep. So that morning, the dog they have with them won't enter into the wolf's territory, and Nihei has to drag the dog basically through it. So that was interesting.
That was shitty. When they dragged the dog, I was like, bitch, you can pick up that dog. Don't be an asshole.
Well, eventually Genjiro like has it like strapped to him. So they were also close enough to hear Sugimoto's gun go off when he has that final confrontation with the deer. And Genjiro recognized it as the same military issued gun he has. So they think they know who they are. But it turns out Red Tower can smell the hunters, so they all get the hell out of there before they show up. But they do just get far enough away so they can still observe the other people as they arrive, and that one of them has the soldier gear on. They end up going back to the hut to find Shurishi there with some information he gathered in town. Apparently, a guy named Nihei had shown back after murdering some guys in the past. He was also asking about how much he could get out of a white wolf's pelt. Serpa is immediately concerned because she knows Red Tower will go back to the deer carcass and the hunters are waiting there in ambush. But Red Tower is smart and had been watching them when they first arrived and took a shit on the carcass when the hunters went to bathe and tried to erase their scent. So
like
they walk up to the carcass. Yeah, they walk up to the carcass. There's just a big shit on it, and they're like, "This fucking wolf."
So good.
So our gang tracks down the hunters the next day that have set up a trap for Red Tower. Serpa barely saves Red Tower's life in time as she like fires an arrow, and it misses it hits like a tin pot or can that was out there. I don't know what it was about. And Nihei's shot just like barely misses as Red Tower barely moves back to get out of the way. And then this is where Sugimoto confronts Nihei and they begin to fight. And like right away, Nihei like loses his fingers like real quick from a knife wound, but he's just like, yeah, whatever, I'm a badass. So I'm interested to see how the next scene opens up. Good God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this hunter is a fucking douchebag. Like, he's clearly set up to be a villain, and he's like very clearly set up to be a contrast to a Sirpa's like Ainu philosophy of like how you treat animals, basically. Like, like by respecting them and then sending them back to the gods and like thanking them for what they provided for you, basically. Whereas he's just like, he would hunt anything on Earth to extinction if he could. Like, he would just kill them all for the sport of it, which is just really stupid.
Yeah, I don't think he's evil or anything. He's just kind of like naturally nasty, you know?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what he's doing is an evil thing, probably, but yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, is there anything else on that episode?
That's all I got. Still like the show.
Yeah,
pretty good.
This episode was like the least fun one so far for me. It was mostly just hunting and tracking scenes, and I wasn't super interested in it, but it picks up again next episode. So it's all good.
Okay. All right. Well, tell us about how Yotsuiro Biyori picked up.
All right.
I will say I'll give you credit, Kat. I don't think Bcom and I would have ever picked this show up without you, and I really enjoy it.
You see?
Definitely true. Yeah.
You
I
see?
put this on my radar, and I really liked it as well.
Yep.
Well, thank you. Okay, so the first episode, episode 5, Love for Lost Sheep, starts with this creepy fucking dude in the window who you learn his name is Isago, and he's a journalist looking for a restaurant to do a story on. Specifically like a cafe sweets type restaurant, but he's really uncomfortable going into these types of cafes which are full of women, even though he loves sweets like a fuck ton. So basically he's a big burly guy who loves cafes yet is completely uncomfortable in a lot of them. So he just keeps going up to a bunch of these cafes and staring in the windows like he's some sort of weird psychotic stalker. Like it's really creepy. Early in the episode, Isago sees Tsubaki, the red-haired guy, go into a popular cafe all like nonchalant and order just a shit ton of food. And he calls him a hero in his brain because he could never do that, and that's what he really wants more than anything. And then Tsubaki looks up from his food and just sees Isago in the window looking like a total creeper, and Isago just runs away crying. Later,
was very good.
Yeah, it was good. Later, Isago is feeling pretty dejected, and he almost decides he's going to have to give up on his column. And then he comes across Rokuhodo, and he sees that lots of people are like just going in and out of this cafe. Old people, like thug-looking yakuza dudes.
Yeah, punks.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
and he like at this point, Isago says it looks kind of like a. And let me see if I can say this. Kanmidokoro. There we go. I think I got that.
Yeah.
And he goes, which apparently is just Japanese for like cafe or something. You had a note about that, Bcom.
Yeah, I guess I'll interject here. So, like, Kamidokoro, I looked this up afterwards because I was very unfamiliar with this. So they're, like, confection shops or cafes that are typically seen in Japan as, like, a sanctuary for women. So that explains why Isago feels so uncomfortable there, because they're typically just, like, women go there. It seems to be, like, an unwritten rule kind of thing.
Okay.
And then there's, like, this article asked like an owner from one in Akihabara who like opened his place in the 1930s why it was that way, and he said, well, at least for my place, like it was situated in a district that like a lot of geisha used to walk by, and it would be like their place to come like to like chill out and like talk with each other and eat like really nice sweets and stuff. So yeah, I guess it kind of evolved out of that over time to have like a reputation that it was just for women. So,
interesting.
Yeah. That's neat.
Yeah, it kind of is neat if you think about it. But yeah, okay, so then Isago is so excited to see this cafe where like all kinds of people are welcome. So he goes in, he orders so many sweets, like a ton, and is thrilled overall with the restaurant. At this point, Tsubaki comes out with one of the plates of sweets he ordered, because he ordered a lot. And Isago is surprised and recognizes him as the hero from earlier at the sweet shop. At this point, I love how the other guys talk about him and his hobby, about how his hobby is sweets. And Tsubaki gets all embarrassed and hits them. He's like, shut up. He's like, Urusai. He's definitely best boy for me. I love Tsubaki so much. And then doesn't Sui at that point, like, doesn't he say, oh, the hero is using violence? I'm like,
yes.
Nice. So they all four of the boys talk with Isago about his problem. And they convince Tsubaki to go with him to a sweet shop later in order for Isago to get over his fear of going to these kinds of places. And Tsubaki kind of reluctantly agrees. Like, you can tell he's not really comfortable, but he's going to do it. They go to this place famous for their fruit waffles. And at first, Isago almost doesn't fucking order them, even though that's the whole reason they came there, because he's embarrassed. But Tsubaki kind of scolds him into it. And the waffles look damn good. Actually, after this episode, I went to the grocery store and I bought waffles because I wanted them so fucking bad.
Look, that's when you know a food show is succeeding, when it like inspires you to go get that food or make it for yourself. 100%.
Yep, that's true. Completely true.
But yeah, so the waffles look so damn good. And apparently they taste good too, because it's at this point where Isago has this almost Food Wars worthy reaction, complete with a scene of him like running naked and somehow shining gold like through the waffles in his brain. And at this point, the other guys chime in from behind them, because apparently all the other guys followed them to the restaurant because they wanted to make sure Tsubaki was okay, since he's pretty shy around new people. They try to kind of pass it off as a coincidence, and Tsubaki totally calls them out. He's like, "Sweet, you're talking out your ass." And I'm like, yes. I love how Tsubaki is a sweet chef, but he also has kind of a dirty mouth sometimes. I don't know. I'm in love with Tsubaki. He's my favorite in this show.
He's a good character. I like him a lot.
Isago ends up covering Rokuhodo in his magazine at the end, as he should, obviously. And then at this point, the episode has about 10 minutes left, I'd say. And it kind of goes into this next part of the episode. And all I can say is, like, what the actual fuck? Like, why did they put this in here? So it's this girl, and you don't know anything. You just know there's this girl, and she's walking down the street. And it's on a rainy day, and she looks, and there's a stained glass door, and she needs a place to get out of the rain, so she goes in.
At this point, I just thought she was having a fever dream.
I also picked up pretty quickly that this is probably a dream. Like, when Sui shows up, I'm like, this is not how he would act. So
yeah, no, I felt that way too. So she goes in, and Sui is completely Western style and is like speaking French words sometimes, and is like scattering rose petals and doing these weird fucking poses and shit. And I'm like, what is this bullfuck? Like, what has happened? And so at one point they even have an image of like the Venus with her and then Rui like next to her. And I'm like, this is so fucking weird. Like, whoever this is who's having this weird fantasy, they obviously love Western culture, because it's all this fantasy is. It's just like Western culture upon Western culture, which is completely the opposite of Rui's aesthetic, because he's so Japanese. Then at some point they have all of the guys come out, and they do this thing where they're like, Formation Omega, and they like do another bullshit pose, and I'm like, no, like, ball of fuck, like, what is this? I was almost done at this point. And the lady's like, the menu is so fancy, I can't even read it. And I'm like, what? And so then like they make her this soup, and they don't even tell you what's in the soup, which most of the fun of the show is like seeing them make the food, at least to me. And then she bathes in it, like, again, kind of like a Food Wars scene. And all I can think at this point, I'm like, when will this end? A. And then what did this bitch do to my poor boys? Like, what is this? So then at the very end, like, she leaves, and it's like she's walking down the street, and she feels so much better, like refreshed for having eaten there. And then you find out it was Isago the whole fucking time. It's his fantasy of himself as a woman having this bullshit dream. And I was like, what did you do to us, Isago? I thought we were cool. You did every single person who had to watch these 10 bullshit minutes. You did us dirty. I don't know. I didn't need to know about his weird semi-sexual fantasies of the Rokuhodo staff, which is basically what this was. I don't know.
Are you judging him by what he identifies as sexually?
No, I'm not judging him. I'm just saying I didn't really want to see it, especially... like,
I saw that and I was like, is this just like his inner woman having a daydream? I don't know.
It was weird.
Yeah.
I don't know why they put that in there. It was fucking weird.
I will say, for that second part of the episode, all that weird fantasy stuff, it was, in my opinion, gorgeously animated at times. Like, it was really fluid. It, like, looked amazing. At the same time, I was going, what the hell is going on?
If you could stop
But I was
vomiting,
like, damn, they put a lot of effort into this.
If you could stop vomiting in your mouth for a second, to actually look at the animation, you would notice that it's gorgeously animated.
We should move on to the next episode, though.
Okay, so then we're moving on to episode 6. It begins with Amu Rice. So all the Rokuhodo guys are working on shop maintenance for a day when the shop is all closed. It's a nice sunny afternoon, and Sui sits down and has a flashback scene. And this entire episode is basically a flashback scene. Apparently, Sui used to do the working professional thing. It shows his coworkers saying, "Don't work too hard," and then him obviously fucking working too hard. Because he's there until like 10 at night or something. He goes home, makes some atrocious looking omelet rice, which he comments happily like turned out a little sour. What the fuck? How do you make eggs sour, by the way?
I think it's because of like the sauce you add to Amu rice probably turned out sour.
I guess.
Maybe there was too much vinegar in it. That'd be my guess.
Or maybe it's just his toxic magic where he can't cook anything without it becoming nauseating. And then he goes down to the shop, which is all boarded up, and tries to make notes on making better coffee. So he's trying to get better at making coffee because he's considering opening the shop back up. Tokitaka meets Sui at a market for the first time since middle school when Sui goes one day to buy new cups. Tokitaka is working there part-time, and he's always kind of had a passion for pottery, apparently, because it shows this montage of him as like a young middle schooler still having interest in pottery. Tokitaka talks about how he's never seen Sui so indecisive as when he's talking about opening the shop back up. Apparently, Sui used to be much more confident and decisive about things in middle school, so something's obviously happened since then to make him so like uncertain. Sui is afraid to open up again because he doesn't want to destroy his grandfather's like business that he treasures so much, but leaving it shut down is basically destroying it anyway. Yeah. Later in the episode, an old friend of Sui's granddad comes over to visit with Tokitaka, and it's sad to learn that he died a few years ago. They serve the old friend and the kid that is with him some Amu rice with these tiny little fish in it. Are those like the same fish that are in Bonito? Is that what that is?
Maybe. I
couldn't quite tell.
Crunchyroll just like...
They're itty bitty.
Yeah. They translate it as like small fish. So they didn't even say like sardines or something. They said just like small fish. So I don't know.
But when they say small fish, they mean fucking small fish. Like they're itty bitty. The old man like also... Okay, so they talk about how the kid loves the Amu rice even though he usually hates fish. And then Sui serves him some tea with the food, and the old man loves the tea too, even though it's not the same as what his granddad used to make. And it kind of talks about it doesn't have to be the same. It just has to be good.
It was
like
actually less bitter. Style. Like it was less bitter. It was like actually easier to drink. So it was like Sui got a lot of confidence from that, knowing that like, hey, this guy who used to go to this cafe all the time thinks that I actually do this thing better than my grandfather did. So yeah. Yeah,
and he just gets so much happiness out of the approval and knowing that he's enjoying the food. And that is the decisive moment where he decides to open the shop back up, and he opens it up with Tokitaka first. And I knew they kind of seemed like the OP pair, like they had known each other longer than the others. So that makes sense to me. Back in the present, he goes back inside and gets ready to have tea and sweets with the other boys. And Tokitaka finds some old broken teacups in a cabinet, and he's afraid he broke them because he doesn't know that they were already broken. And then Sui explains that they were already broken, and he's like has another flashback to the time they broke. And it shows like his brother coming into the shop, and remember they're twins. And Sui is talking about how he loves the shop so much and how he wants to take over when his granddad retires. And then Sui's brother gets really angry and drops the teacup and says he's never coming back here again and leaves. And I noticed that in that flashback, Sui talked about his brother's dad as if he wasn't also his dad. Did you guys catch that? Because it said your dad, not our dad.
Yeah, I caught that. There's something there. Yeah,
I don't really know if that's a translation error, because there were a lot of translation errors in this episode.
Yeah.
Or if there's something to that, because it seems weird to me that they would be twins and yet have different fathers, but they could have gotten split up in a divorce. Like, that could be a thing. Like,
Could
maybe
be,
the
yeah.
dad got one of them and the mom got the other one. Because that happens sometimes. But yeah, there's obviously something going on here, like, we'll see later. It's interesting. Sui talks about how it's not all been great since he opened up the shop, and they've had a lot of hard times, but the happiness that he sees his customers getting out of coming to the shop keeps him going, basically. Basically this is just all about some of the history of the shop. There wasn't a lot of plot here. It's mostly just showing you little flashes.
Yeah, it was good to get like the backstory of why he opened the shop, like, and also it showed you the differences between him and his brother and why they split onto different paths, essentially.
Kind of.
My favorite part of the episode is like the little kid who enjoyed eating the omurice, even though it had like a food he previously thought he like didn't like at all in it. Because it's an experience I've had a lot, like where in my life I've gone places and eaten food that I thought I didn't like because I was in the right environment. Like I went to Copenhagen, Denmark, and we were at this like fairground, and there was this like hot dog stand, like this sausage stand, and like I went up to this like gorgeous Danish girl, and I was like, I just want a hot dog with ketchup, and she's like, no, you don't. And she's like, you need like these 3 types of mustard and like this relish on it, and I was like, I can't say no because you're like that gorgeous. So okay, and like I really enjoyed it, and I didn't realize that I would like it because like
I have relish on it too.
Yeah. It was delicious. It was so good. It was like one of the best things I've ever eaten in my life. And it was because I was in the right environment at like the right time and eating the right thing.
That wouldn't work on me.
Yeah, you have these like extreme opinions about certain foods.
I'm an extremely picky eater. And it's not that it's just like, it's kind of okay. No, it's just like if I don't like it and I put it on my tongue, it engages my gag reflex. Tomatoes probably being the worst. Like the slightest bit of tomato juice can't touch the food.
So what I'm hearing is you were spoiled as a child. That's what I'm hearing right now, Leo.
How so was I spoiled?
Because if your parents had been like, no, you're going to eat what I put in front of you, you wouldn't be picky, right?
Oh, that's what you say after I gag and almost puke on the plate.
I doubt you gagged like the first time you ate a tomato. Or if you did and your parents weren't just like, I don't care, keep eating it, like, then you were spoiled.
I grew up on home-cooked meals. My mom made dinner every single day, so...
Yeah, so did mine. But, like, my parents were like, you fucking eat that.
So, yeah, like, my mom, if she would
that's my parents, too.
Yeah, it's impossible for me to do that, because I just get physically sick. I can't,
Well, then... my mom used to be like, if you're not going to eat it, then you're going to come down to breakfast in the morning and it's still going to be on your plate warmed up and you're going to have to eat it.
No, see, like if my mom would make like baby carrots or something she'll eat, my dad would eat, my brother would eat, I can't eat it. So she would just like put applesauce or cottage cheese on the table instead for me, for something like that.
Yep. Confirmed.
Spoiled.
Spoiled 100%. Leo. Spoiled Leo.
It's either that or there's puke on the table, so I
would rather if I was your parent, I would have just gone with the puke option. Then like he needs to grow out of this.
he needs to get some toughening up in his system.
I can't help it. It's just taste buds, man.
Other than
that, I found this episode not as fun without the whole crew. I was pretty bored with it.
Yeah,
I didn't give 2 shits about the backstory because I don't really felt like it delved into what's up with his brother at all. So I was just like, throw this episode away. Could have done without it.
Well, it's not a shit episode. It does tell you things that you need to know. But I did agree it was less fun than the one before that. Like, it was not as fun as a regular episode, but it was necessary. So...
I agree with Leo in a sense that they could have covered more about his brother, but I'm sure that'll be coming down the road. So,
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my only complaint, but we can move on.
All right, yeah. Wednesdays, we've got Steins Gate 0. In episode 5 is called Solitude of the Astigmatism, Entangled Sheep. These episode titles...
What the fuck is that?
I don't know.
It's words in a
Solitude
hat. Words in a hat, and they're just pulling them out.
Do you know what an astigmatism is to me?
I have
think
astigmatism.
Of the thing you have in your eyes.
Yeah.
Yes. What the fuck?
I don't know, man. It's weird. So, Rintaro, of course, is really wary of Moeka showing up at the lab, since in previous world lines she had been hell-bent on killing Mayuri. But this time around, she's an editor for a magazine called Arc Rewrite, who cover urban legends of Akihabara, and she's there to talk to Daru about the case of Kagari Shina. And despite like Rintaro's reservations about her, they end up hiring Moeka to look for Kagari, try and find out like where she disappeared to, where she is. So there's a funny scene where Professor Leskinen grills Mahou about why she's actually going to visit Akihabara, because she's talking about going there. She basically is forced to admit it's to see Rintaro. And I don't know why he's so interested in her love life. Like, it is the most important thing to him all the time. It's so stupid, but, you know, it's funny. She's worried about what she's said on the roof about Kurisu being dead. And, like, Rintaro hasn't answered his phone since they talked about that. So, yeah. Moeka reports back to the lab, and somehow she has, like, a huge pile of papers that she has collected this quickly about, like, the history of Kagari Shina and where she may have gone, like, all of her research. She's, like, very diligent. One interesting thing that she found is that, like, some men, including one foreigner, are searching for Kagari as well, though she's not sure who they are. So Mahou arrives in Akihabara, and she immediately gets the sense that somebody is watching or following her. And then, like, she runs down an alley, and then, like, somebody in high heels starts following her and, like, running after her. And she calls Rintaro on the phone. He, like, grabs a fake lightsaber and runs out of the lab to go help her, thinking that this could be, like, a Mayuri situation where he has to stop her from getting killed. But instead, he finds that, like, a woman is, like, hugging Mahou when he shows up. And this woman asks Rintaro in, like, bad English if he is Mahou's boyfriend. And he responds, yes, not really understanding what she's saying. So yeah, this new character, her name is Judy Reyes, and she's a professor from Victor Condro University, where Mahou also works out of. She specializes in psychophysiology, which is how cognitive processes affect the body. So you can definitely guess where her expertise is going to come in with Kurisu. It turns out Reyes only spotted Mahou when she jumped into the alley, though, and wasn't the one that was initially following her. So, like, somebody else might have been following her. It might have been nobody at all, but it's kind of mysterious. And at this point, Daru finally shows up to help and tells Mahou, "You're becoming more lolly by the minute, and you're our token lolly lab member." And I just like, Daru, go kill yourself. Like, God. Jeez Christ.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
So Mahou confronts...
He's so...
Yeah.
He's so bad. I don't know.
Yeah, he's just like, he's like a relic of like older anime almost. You know, it's like we've kind of moved past the Darus of anime, sort of. The guys who like lollies in anime these days are way more like direct about it. And they're like just trying to have sex with you. Like Daru's just like, I want to talk about it. So Mahou confronts Rintaro about not talking to Kurisu, and he assures her that he understands that it's just a system and not a real person, but he's just having a lot of trouble separating Kurisu's memories from the real person he knew, and he needs more time to think about things. And then finally, afterwards, Rukiko brings someone over to meet Rintaro at the lab, and it's clearly Kagari Shina, who's age 22 now, and she is like the spitting image of Kurisu, except like all of the girls in Steins Gate Zero, she has huge breasts. Like, the whole joke about Kurisu in the first season is that she was flat-chested, and of course this is like upgraded Kurisu with big breasts apparently.
Of course.
So Rukiko brought her here because she has amnesia, and she wants Rintaro's help in finding out who she really is. And temporarily they decide to call her Kana. Like, at least that's what Rukiko's dad like gave her that name, so they're calling her Kana for now. And then Rintaro asks her, like, do you have any hints about who you are? And that's when Mayuri returns to the apartment, and she's been shopping for costume accessories, whatever. And Rintaro opens this pouch that Kana hands to him and reveals this upa, like the little gacha things that Mayuri loves to get. And Mayuri's like, oh, I know that upa. It just showed up in a new movie. And then Rintaro's like, well, if it just showed up in a new movie and it looks really old and faded like this, that can only mean one thing. It must have gone to the future and come back.
Da-da-na.
So
I'm sorry. It's just so dramatic.
Kana gets like super overwhelmed from seeing Mayuri as well because it clearly jogs her memory, and she passes out. And then Suzuha arrives and she finally confirms it's Kagura Shina. So we know who it is.
There are a lot of soap opera-y like moments in those last 10 minutes of this episode. You have to admit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
There are a lot of like, oh no. Like it's looks old and faded, which can only mean one thing. and then like the dramatic passing out and like, okay, so
yeah, it's like
dramatic.
And then Mayuri is her mother in the future.
Yeah. So because like let's check the boxes for soap opera cliches. She has amnesia.
Yeah.
She may somehow be connected to or related to someone in a mysterious, unknown way. She looks just like a character from the past that is
who's
long
dead. Like a dead character from the past. Like that's such a soap opera thing.
All they have as a clue to their past is a mysterious object. And there's a dramatic fainting scene. Soap opera cliche confirmed. That's all I'm gonna
It's so true.
Also, I noticed at the very beginning, like it's more like the middle, really, where Maho's running down the street.
Yeah.
And she's wearing two types of sandal shoes, one on each foot.
With socks.
You said. Yeah. I don't know if that's supposed to be eccentric and cute or something, but it's just, it's not. It's tacky. It's weird.
Yeah, it's that cliche of like the intellectual person who doesn't care about their appearance because they're like that focused on everything else besides their appearance. So like they forget. Yeah. Gap moe, as you might say. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, there's always weird like images and shit on TV in the Steins Gate shows, and they never really seem connected with the main storyline. Like in the first series, it was that fucked up llama with the human face, which they actually have it still in this one. Have you noticed?
I haven't noticed. That makes sense.
They have it like on notebooks and shit. It'll just like be a notebook on the coffee table and it'll have the fucked up llama with the human face. And I'm like, why is this still a thing?
Oh god.
And then this time there was a weird clip at the very, very beginning of the episode of a TV news show about how there were a bunch of chimpanzee bodies found washed up on some beach in the US with their brains and part of their skulls missing. Did you see that?
Yes.
It was like 10 seconds. I don't know if that's just going to be some fucked up thing on TV like the last time, or if that's actually going to be a clue.
I think that's a clue.
I don't know.
I think that's definitely a clue.
The first season though, I thought that the llama was going to be some weird clue because they kept doing it. Like they kept closing in on the llama, and I was like, what is this going to tie into? And it never tied into anything. So I don't know if I don't know.
I think between Reyes and Leskinen, it's pretty clear, and like this commercial and stuff, they're trying to put human memories into a human body, and they're starting with chimpanzee tests to see how that might work if it like kills the chimpanzees. And so they're going to put Kurisu into a human body eventually. That's my guess.
Okay, interesting.
I have
we'll see, I guess.
put that much thought into this show.
Okay, we can move on, I guess, Episode 6, Eclipse of Orbital Ordering. Okay, so we find out that Kaguri was recently found collapsed and unconscious by a priest, and that's why she was at Rukuko's house. And of course, Mayushi has a lot of empathy for her, and like always, she's always the character with the most empathy, at least I find. At first, they didn't explain it very well, and I thought that they meant they'd found Kaguri collapsed as a child, but then I realized they meant literally just a few days ago. It seems very convenient. Like, so convenient. I don't know. And then Suzuha has this moment, like the scene where she's talking to her dad, and she's like, but where has she been now all this time? What has she been doing? Exactly. Like, what the fuck has she been doing all this time?
That is a good question. Yeah.
Especially since she has amnesia. That makes me even more suspicious. Rintaro has Rukuko keep an eye on Kaguri and tells him not to let Kaguri out on her own, basically, for a few days. The next day, the group all goes to a shrine where apparently half of Rintaro's harem have have just decided to dress up as shrine maidens for the day for no fucking reason other than it looks pretty and makes the male audience happy, I guess. I don't know.
Makes Professor Leskinen happy, kind of.
I get. Well, he misses it.
He
though.
misses it, and he's like crushed.
Yeah, and so as they're on their way to the shrine, there's another strange time skip where the group is asking Mahou about her research. Then it jumps to Rintaro just standing there in the middle of the street while everyone is walking away, as if that had never happened.
Yeah.
And he had just like stopped walking and hallucinated or something. It was interesting. Then Itaru has to be a giant creeper just like before and ask his own daughter to say, "Bend over, Oni-chan. Time for your shot."
Oh my god, Daru. What the fuck are you doing?
It's terrible.
Holy shit.
At some point, Mahou is saying she can't believe Rukuko is a guy. And they do a quick pull away shot after saying they will prove that he is.
Yeah.
Did we just have a upskirt thing? Did they just pull up his skirt?
No, I don't think. Well, they were gonna like do that. Like they were insinuating that there's an easy way to check, and then they were going to do that. So it was pretty shitty. Yeah. They cut away before anything happens.
They totally pulled up his skirt.
Oh yeah, they totally did. That's what it sounded like. So there you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this has a lot of ecchi scenes in it, like cutesy little cheeky stuff. Mahou talks to Rintaro at one point this episode and tells him he needs to make a decision about Kurisu, whatever that means. I don't really know.
Yeah.
Then the foreign dude shows up later after everyone else is gone, and he's like, "Oh, the famous shamans, shrine maidens." Simple. But yeah, like we were saying earlier, he's upset he missed him and leaves. And he's basically just American comic relief. He's like, look at this stupid bumbling American make a fool of himself.
Also, he
that's his
showed
whole
up.
Character.
He showed up with Professor Reyes, like the new professor, and as she's like dragging him away, she like side eyes them as she's leaving in a very evil way. Like I think she's looking at Kaguri, but like she side eyes kind of like all of them, so it's like a little bit up to your interpretation. But yeah, she's got something evil in mind.
I did not notice that at all.
Yeah, it's quick, but it's definitely there.
And then, okay, did anyone notice that the mechanic shop owner sees a guy following Mayushi's friends?
Yes.
On their way to the part. I noticed that, and I was like, ooh, because then I bet it's the same guy who was following Mahou in the last episode.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know. That's my opinion. Okay, so then everyone goes back to the lab, and they have a potluck later. Like, so they're all eating all this food. It looks damn delicious. I don't know what those beans were that everyone was eating, but they look really good, even though I don't really like beans.
Yeah, they were weird. I've never seen those before, but it was all New Year's food, I guess, like traditional New Year's type food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Mahou answers the phone when Amadeus calls her. And suddenly everyone notices Amadeus, and they're asking about her, and Mahou's explaining about the AI and all that, and they're all talking to Amadeus, and they're really interested. Mahou apologizes to Rintaro at this point because it was an accident. Like, she didn't mean to introduce everyone to Amadeus, and it's obvious he kind of didn't want the group to know. Like, he wanted to keep them separate because of his conflicted feelings. Rintaro says, well, maybe it's time, and he should learn to know that, like, Amadeus is a separate person from Kurisu, just like Kaguri is a different person from Kurisu, even though she looks like her. And then while he's saying that, Amadeus like just shuts down, like cuts off all of a sudden while she's talking with everyone. And Rintaro has this weird PTSD flashback of all the times where Mayushi's watch would die, and then she would be killed right afterwards. And then all of these guys with guns like burst into the party. They're all wearing masks. Mayushi seems confused. Like, she kind of thinks it's a surprise, but like it's not.
No.
And then it ends. And I hate that every single episode of this series is just a giant cliffhanger ending.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, but it we'll see, I guess, what happens next week.
There's a lot of like curious little moments in this episode. Like in the beginning, like Mayuri like leaves the apartment really quickly when Kaguri shows up, and she's like, "I wouldn't be any help if I stayed behind." And then I forget who's following along behind her. I think it's Rukuko. Yeah, it's Rukuko, and Rukuko is like, "You're going the wrong way." And then she kind of like she trails off, and Mayuri keeps walking. Like something really shook her about seeing Kaguri. And I don't know if it's because she thinks she looks like Kurisu, or it's because like she sort of remembers her daughter from the future. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was an earlier episode where she overheard him talking to her, and that shook her up then.
Yes, for sure.
Well, she's obviously aware that Rentaro likes someone, because doesn't she say in a previous episode, like, no, he's in love with someone else? So I think she knows more than she pretends that she knows about everything.
And the other weird moment I noted is like when Yuki Amane is saying that she's really into AI research. Rintaro kind of like flinches as if he like remembers something, and that clearly has some meaning as well, but I don't know what it is. So they're giving us a lot of little pieces to try and puzzle together at this point, which is interesting. So we'll see.
It's connected to when like time cuts out when Mahou is talking about AI research. Obviously there's something going on with that.
When the guys like hit the apartment, like when time cuts out, like also Kurisu's feed on the phone goes dead. So clearly there's something connected there with Amadeus. So yeah, I don't know, it's interesting. I'm having fun trying to figure out where they're going.
Yeah, they have a lot more subtle clues in this anime than in the original Steins Gate.
Yeah,
I feel like
I don't know. I'm not really questioning anything or trying to figure out where they go. Probably because I've watched too much Doctor Who, and I've been programmed to that when time travel is involved, to just not question anything. You will destroy your show.
Yeah, that can be true.
Yeah, this episode, I thought it was kind of boring until just like the very end when like everything went down. I don't feel like there's any good plot progression until, again, right at the very end. I don't know. It was just in like having a party or something. I was just like, whoop-de-doo.
Well, it's small moments. It's like those small things that I picked up on. Like, but other than that, you're right. Like, not much really happened. It's it's like giving you hints to try and figure things out, basically. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right, should we move on to the next thing?
Oh God, are you ready?
Oh shit!
Yeah, I'm ready.
Here we go.
All right.
Let's all take a deep breath. think about your friendship and how much you care about each other. All right.
We're gonna start doing some talking about Doreiku, episode 5, Bewilderment, which is Bcom's reaction to the show.
That's true.
So somehow Zero was able to disobey Ryu's command and run away. Some voice in his head was telling him to, but Taiju hits him with like a stun gun and stops him from getting away. Ryu speculates that maybe they aren't completely under control when they first become the slave.
I have a thought about this. So I was watching with Andrew, and I think they're implying that he has a split personality, basically.
Yeah, that's one of my theories too.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like Ryu also says that like no slave wearing an SEM has ever disobeyed an order before, which I think like we could basically infer can't be true, because why, like when they were doing all their experiments on like how far you can push slaves, does that mean they never did an experiment where they pushed them too far and had them disobey? Because then all of their experiments would be really dumb unless you tried to push them actually too far and found the line, because you have to find the line, right?
Well, that's what they've been trying to do. Like they had the one picture with like the girl wrapped in barbed wire and like the fucking crazy shit they said. So apparently they have not found that line yet, is my assumption.
Maybe if like just order them to kill themselves, that's the line right there, right? So like they would have disobeyed an order.
They couldn't do that. Yeah, but they can't do that. That's one of the rules.
Yeah, well, I guess they can't do that. All right. Anyway,
okay.
So
the master cannot command the slave to commit an action that would lead to death. And what that line is, we don't know, because fucking just telling them to cross the street could lead to death. So
yeah.
They're trying to figure out what that line is.
Yeah.
So Zenichi has also disappeared from the hospital, and a note was left behind challenging him to a duel and signed by a crazy person. Shiori then later on meets up with Chuo and asks how he became a slave. He worked for a company that would sometimes take their clients to hostess clubs and stuff like that, and that's where he ended up meeting Julia. Long story short, they played a guessing game eventually of what color was her panties, but she was going commando the whole time, so he lost, became her slave. And
So
I guess that I was like, she's not wearing any.
This is another example. It's like what Leo and I were just talking about. It's like she just cheated. Like she cheated. That's how she won the duel.
Well, but
It's
there's
trickery.
a lot. I mean, it's all
cheating.
about psychology and trickery. It's not cheating.
Yes, it is.
It's
You
just,
like the correct response to
it's
that is to
not.
say the duel is
you-
invalidated because you lied about what the duel was even about.
A lot of this show is
The
about tricking
duels-
people into being their
the
slaves.
duels
Yeah, I
so
know
it makes
that.
perfect
By
sense.
cheating.
The whole point of the duels is to make someone feel like they've lost. It doesn't necessarily matter what actually happened. It matters how the person feels.
I
Okay.
suppose that's
So if
true.
they feel like they lost, then the SEM activates, I guess.
Then they lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, then one more note before Leo goes on to the next point, though, is that Shiori talks to Ataru, right? Or she thanks Ataru for saving her from Zenichi, and even Ataru says, "The dog saved you, not me."
Yes.
So I'm just pointing out I was 100% right last episode when I said that they should not have accepted becoming their slaves because he did not fulfill the contract that he set out, which was that he has to save
But if
her.
the cat's
In
right,
fact,
they
he
felt
should
like
have
they
become
lost.
her slave because he failed his contract of saving the guy or whatever. Like, it's like somebody else saved them. So maybe in the most like honest case, like because the dog saved them, the whole contract should be invalidated because like it can't be performed anymore.
But even so, if Kat's right about if Taiju still felt like he lost, then that would still cause it to activate. And
Yeah,
also,
but Taiju
they
is a
still-
moron for feeling like he lost. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, but he is a moron. But
Yeah.
that doesn't. Yeah, I agree. He is a
and
moron.
we have still yet to see them have to do a direct command, so they may not even be under their control as far as we know.
Okay. Yeah, that's
So
true.
I don't know yet. Okay, so Aya meets up with Yuga, who had also received a letter from a crazy person, but it ended up with Aika's mail, but that's not important. There's this line here where Aya asks Aika if she has lost some weight. In the moment, it means absolutely nothing, but it totally explains what happens later on.
I mean, I think it means something. It means that like she looks like she's been going through a lot of shit as his slave. Like, and she sees this and she's like, maybe this whole slavery thing isn't good for her or for anyone,
Well, maybe, but I just think this is a really good example of the show living up to its tag of psychological. But Aya starts to finally get fed up with Yuga because he is keeping his slaves and not releasing them like he said he would. She says she will not help him anymore, and later at home thinks about returning his money in the SEM he gave her.
So you
But then
skipped over a big scene.
Okay, where they fought?
Yeah, where he pushed. Okay, so she tells him you need to stop this SCM shit, and says she
Yeah.
doesn't agree with him anymore on like how he's going to the brink of the SCM world because things
Yep.
have gone off the rails and he's dragging innocent people into it. That's one of the things that really upsets her is he is dragging innocent people into it, which is important to remember for next episode. Again, I don't know how she didn't realize this earlier, like when he first was like, "I'm going to take slaves," but
She questioned it.
she questioned it, but she was like, okay, this
Yeah.
sounds like fun. Now that she realizes it's not so fun, she's like, oh, maybe this is bad. And she says it's time for him to stop, and he throws her down on the ground. And he says he thought she was on his side and doesn't get why she doesn't understand him. And she says, you've changed. And she tells him she won't help him
okay.
anymore.
Yeah, I said they had a fight.
So
Yeah, but that's not
I
enough.
think-
Like there's key moments in that fight that I'll be talking about later, basically.
I don't know. I think that he obviously wants a partner who can challenge him, and she is as smart as he is, if not more so, right?
Yeah.
Right.
They're both really smart, and that's what attracts them to each other in the first place. He wants someone he can find excitement and interest in, but he obviously also kind of wants to overpower them in the end and have control over the situation.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really care what he has to do in order to have that happen. He kind of has like psychopathic tendencies, right? And people
Yeah.
who are kind of psychopathic can be very charismatic and magnetic at
Yep.
first and
That's
sort
how
of
you
charm
end up,
you.
That's
and
how
then
you end up with cult
switch.
leaders.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not surprised that she's all of a sudden like, "Oh, you've changed." Like, that just tells me he's kind of psychopathic sometimes.
Yeah.
You know?
Aya goes back home and she gets a message as Yuga tied up and saying he lost to the crazy person and to meet them at a certain hotel with their dog to battle. Excuse me. They go and find that it was just a trick by Yuga to get them there. He made Ayaka strip and get to an ice bath to force Aya to agree to let him duel Zushi, and then he would be able to make Aya do as he says because Zushi would be under his control, and Aya is a good person, and just couldn't basically see that. Just holding the dog hostage is for the most part.
So I have something to interject here, sorry. So
okay.
Yuga goes into a diatribe about his motivations, about how he really came to be the person he is right now. And his quote is, "School was so boring. All the girls I dated were boring and fuck working. In the end, nothing could make me feel fulfilled. But the SCM is different. It's made me feel more alive than anything has before. So I've finally found where I belong."
I don't see your problem.
My problem is that his motivations for taking slaves are that he was bored.
Yeah, he's a psychopath.
Well, that
I don't think they're supposed to make sense.
Yeah, that also falls in line with having psychopathic tendencies. A lot of people who have psychopathic tendencies do really out there things because they say they are bored.
Yes, but the problem comes in because Aya is hearing all this from him. So Aya has now been pushed down by him, had her dog taken hostage by him, and then finds out that this is how he really thinks about the SCM stuff, right?
Yep.
Yet, in the next episode, she will still help him. So, continue.
Oh, no, she's helping herself in the next episode, but we'll get there. She finally agrees, and Yuga has Ayaka and Zushi duel. It's an eating contest, and they have to eat everything on the plates, except the only thing on the plates is like a butter knife and a fucking fork. So Ayaka busts out some wire cutters and starts cutting up the silverware and eating it. And this is where I thought was clever, because this is where earlier Aya asked if she was looking thin, and that's why he did this contest. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I like this. Aya tries to get her to stop, but Yuga won't let her, saying a duel can't be stopped once it's started. Ayaka eventually finishes and Zushi becomes her slave, and later on they transfer it to Yuga. Aya ends the scene just, slumped over in a chair looking defeated. Go for it, Bcom.
Well, I was going to say, so both of those things, both the ice bath and eating silverware, could have directly led to Aya's death.
Could have, but we don't know what that line is yet.
Yeah, but both of those we know in real life can lead to death. So isn't this an example of the show breaking its own rules?
Right?
No,
there are a bunch of kids.
Why is it not breaking its own rules when both of those things could kill her?
There are a bunch of children who swallow sharp objects all the fucking time and they don't die.
Yeah, but I read online perforated bowels will kill you. If you eat silverware or sharp metal objects, can easily kill you.
Both can potentially kill you. And I did check with some friends of ours, Bcom, who work in the medical field, Bricky and Triad, and asked them specifically about this. Crap, I gotta grab out my notes. But the main point is you're more than likely to survive. Like Kat said, kids swallow.
Kids swallow sharp shit all the time. And they just do.
Her snips were super freaking small.
Yeah, they were not huge pieces.
Yeah, so here, as they put it, there's a shitloads of complications. Number one, cuts up your esophagus, leading to bleeding long term, can get infected. Number two, cuts your stomach when it goes in there, causing stomach acid to leach out. Again, infection, etc. 3, if it gets to intestines, as can't digest, metal can cut up intestines and kill you at that point. If they does cut you, doesn't mean it will. If you get it all the way through, you're going to have a sore ass. You might end up with bowel removal and end up with a colostomy bag for life. I then asked him, so it's definitely survivable. What do you think the odds would be? And he goes, yes, survival, but most likely would need medical attention sooner or later unless you're lucky as fuck. Body can't digest it, so for it to pass through without damaging would be pretty miraculous. Depends on metal, sharpness, and their body, etc. So if she got medical attention shortly afterwards, she's probably fucking A-okay.
Okay.
Or if she even just vomits and gets it all.
Yeah, if she got back up. And it could have torn up, the esophagus a little bit or the throat or something, but then again, there's still a chance if she gets an infection or even how bad it was. And like I said, we just don't know that line of how far they can make somebody go. We're positive they can't order their direct death. They say, can't put the gun to your head and pull the trigger. So that would definitely freaking kill you. But, it depends on the gun, I guess. A lot of people have tried to do that with 22s, and you just end up with a wicked scar.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we just don't know that line. So
So what was
what
you
I
were
got
going
for
to say
that
something
episode.
about how Aya is a good guy now.
Well, she was kind of been the good guy character so far, and she's been participating a little bit, and she thought Yuga had good intentions, so it was just kind of neat to see her being forced into the show and to participate now because Yuga has this leverage over her.
What?
And
what
I
do you
just
mean
want to see
good
where it goes.
intentions? How could he have good intentions?
No, Yuga does not have good intentions.
You know, but you said she thought he had
Talking
good
about
intentions.
Yeah, she thought he just. Well, I guess not even good intentions. Just at least they weren't bad intentions. I guess they were pretty neutral. He just wanted to check out the game, and she didn't really. I guess not
She
think
didn't
about
think
it too much
he,
at the time.
like, directly wanted to hurt people. She just
Yeah.
thought he wanted to do like crazy fun things. Like she didn't think he was like, oh, let's fuck up some people,
Yeah,
right?
she just thought he was just like a daredevil or something like that.
Isn't
For the most
taking
part.
anyone, any innocent person as your slave literally just fucking with someone's livelihood?
But he was intentionally going to release them right away, which he did not, and that's what kind of pisses her off.
Okay.
Well, but that's kind of the slippery slope, right? Where I thought there was this comment by that suited slave guy who and then when he's driving the car, where he's talking about how no one in the SEM world is where he's talking about no one is trustworthy in the SEM world. It doesn't matter like if the person in question is posed as a good guy or a bad guy in the situation.
Yeah.
The important thing is whether to distrust someone like a lot or a little bit. And I really think that the show is meant to make you question, even though Aya is set up as like the good hero character, if in the end, if she's going to be a good hero character, or if she is also just fooling herself and is also entertained by the whole situation in the end, right? I think that's the whole point. Mm-hmm. The show is supposed to make you question which one it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Even in the end result, even if she does, I guess, succeed, was what she actually did a good thing or not? But is that any more notes for episode 5?
Everything else like continues into the next episode, and that's where I have big problems. So,
All right, episode 6, Awareness. We start off from their perspective of Zushi and get a backstory on the SEM's creation that I was not expecting.
So can you say it again? Whose perspective do we start off this episode from?
Dogs.
The dog. Okay, the sentient dog who can think like a human's perspective. Okay. This is an intelligent slavery show, very psychological. We need to know the dog's perspective on slavery. Okay, continue.
Well, but you can't act like this is the first anime you've watched where they had a episode from the perspective of a dog.
Name
or
a
cat.
serious anime that had a episode from the perspective of a dog.
Come on. Now
No,
you're
seriously,
just
name
splitting
a
hairs.
non-comedy anime that had an episode from the perspective of an
on.
animal or a dog.
Now you're just splitting hairs.
What's that show? And we just watched it last season. The show with the Ram Battle Ring episode. It was the final episode.
The Ram,
The
Kino's
you mean,
Journey.
Yeah,
You didn't think that was funny? That was a comedy episode, Leo. Clearly,
you're still talking about a serious show where that show has very serious episodes. I'm sure in the original they probably did the other guy's dog. I mean, it fucking talks.
So do you think this is a comedy episode?
No.
So then you
come
think
on,
don't you think it
the
might
dog
feel a little bit
talks-
out of place
the
that we have
dog
a
in
dog talking?
So the way they did the talking for the dog was, it's like, all right, this human helped me, so then I must do something to help reward them. They could have just done it like a dog and been like, human helped, I must help him, which would have sucked. I think that's just the writing, so it's easier
I'm
on
inclined
us.
to think it is a comedy because we have
Also,
the dog.
did you call the dog sentient?
Yeah, it's sentient because it's thinking. It's having full thought.
Yeah, all dogs are sentient.
Yeah, but like dogs don't understand human speech to the level this dog does in this episode.
Well, but the dog has also had this weird mind control device plugged into its head, and it's had like experiments done on it, as we learned in this episode. So who knows? Maybe it's smart because of that. I don't fucking know. They never explain it.
I have no problem with it from the dog's from the dog's perspective because it wasn't about the slavery. It was about the making of the SCM, and I was like, okay, cool. I didn't really care how it was made, but
it's
now
giving
it
you
was interesting.
backstory. Like, how
Yeah.
else are they going to? I mean, I don't know.
Well,
It's
here's
not
the funny
terrible.
part though. Like the part that I thought like devolved into comedy was when the dog sees like a female dog on a truck, and it thinks to itself,
yes.
I suppose it was love at first sight. I was head over heels for that bitch before I knew it. And then the truck dog drives away, and it runs after her thinking like, I ran after that bitch without a second thought. And I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Was it
I have to
the
admit,
use of the word bitch?
Well, I mean, it's funny because, like,
no, it's just the dramatic, very serious, like, way that he says it.
Yeah.
Tonal
Funny to me.
shift. Yeah, it was
Didn't
strange.
Tadakun just do this with the cat?
Tadakun
though,
is a
too?
comedy.
I don't
It makes
think the
sense in a
genre makes a
comedy.
difference.
I think it makes a lot of difference. But anyway, it's just weird to have like the dog thinking. I feel like the show like kind of jumped the shark with this moment. But anyway, yeah.
Okay, so anyways, he chases after the girl dog, but ends up injuring himself, and a professor stumbles upon him and kind of like takes him in while he heals. And to repay the professor's kindness, Ushi decides to help him in his experiments. Turns out the professor was developing the SEM to help control pets better. I thought that was kind of interesting. I was like, oh, that was its original creation. But one of his students, Setagaya, steals the data and disappears with it.
And
Zushi doesn't...
he tells, okay, so the student tells Zushi that instead of using the SEM as a device for training pets, there are, quote, much more meaningful and exciting uses for the device, like human
the dude
slavery.
He's a
fucked up.
villain.
Good,
He's
Bcom.
supposed to be a fucked
The
up
bad guy
person.
seems fucked up. Good, you figured it out.
Okay, but the problem isn't that the bad guy seems fucked up. It's that the bad guy and Yuga and a.a. later in this episode are all just fetishizing slavery at this point.
I
where
don't
it's
think
like
they're
slavery is
fetishizing it.
exciting. Like
The basis of this show is about enslaving other people. So
And
for
how
it
exciting
to
it is.
fetish,
Yeah.
No, to actually fetishize it, it would have to go way farther than what it's doing now.
I
it would just
disagree.
literally
I think
have to
talking
be
about
an
how
entire
exciting slavery
episode.
is fetishization
No,
in
it would just
itself.
be an entire episode of nothing but complete and absolute abuse before I would agree with that, considering this is what its subject matter is about.
So you would say that in a lolicon show, the guy would have to abuse the girl rather than just talk about how exciting lollies are. Like, think about that show that was ruined by the one pedophile character who drew like the maps of like the area where all the schoolgirls went.
Something gal girl or something like
my
that.
girlfriend is a gal. Yeah. So like he is fetishizing like lolicon, like. Just by talking about it, he's
That's
not going and actually
completely out of
molesting a
place.
girl, but he is
The
fetishizing
lolicon
the
is
idea
completely
of
out
it.
of place in the show. It was literally just this one random scene. I'm like, what the fuck does this have to do with the show? Unlike this one, where slavery has to do with everything about the show.
I think you just have less of a problem with lolicon stuff than you do with slavery. And I think you have to admit that to yourself. Because they're definitely
I hate lolicon
fetishizing
stuff.
the idea of slavery in this show and how exciting
They
and
aren't
meaningful it is.
fetishizing it.
And
They're
so
just
it's
talking-
also the character who you consider to be good, a.a., who in the last episode when he went on his big diatribe, the main character Yuga, she was like, I used to think that too, meaning that I used to find this idea of taking a slave like really exciting. And so even the good character, like the good guy,
Yeah, but her fucking end goal is to enslave everybody and release them at once. So at least she has a positive end to it.
yes,
And
at least
honestly,
they finally
that's
get to
probably
like
the only way out
the
of this-
positive end. Yes,
Out of this situation, I don't see any other option she has. So, whatever.
How
Go
else
for
is
it.
she going to free everyone
Yeah.
if she can't organize them all? I get what she's doing, but also you have to admit, like, there's a potential for her to just get fucked up and decide, like, oh, now I'm the master of everyone. Maybe I don't need to free them at the end,
And then also the professor, like Sumida, who developed the SCM, like his response to Setagaya, like stealing the SCM and going to like
It's just giving up.
is like basically he says like all of his colleagues come to him, we need to tell the police about this, and he's like, no, I'll take care of it on my own, and then he goes and hangs himself. He commits suicide.
yeah.
So he'd rather hang
was
himself
dumb.
than go to the police. That's not how the world works. Like, you would go to the police. Like, I guess.
Wait, he went and hung himself?
Yeah, he hung himself.
Yeah,
I
he
guess you
did.
missed that scene because you didn't put it in your synopsis.
Yeah, I just remember him chilling on the back porch and the dog's
Then
like,
he hangs himself on the porch.
Yeah,
and the
Zushi
dog
comes back and sees him
and he's,
hanging
like,
from the ceiling.
oh god, I must have blinked.
Yeah.
I missed that part.
And then there's a
That
funny
was
moment
more
after
than
there
a
where
blink.
Zushi like cheesily howls at the moon. And he thinks to himself,
Yes,
I'm going to repay
that was
his
a
debt,
little
my
dramatic.
debt. Yeah.
Yeah, so
That was
anyways,
a little dramatic.
Zuchi decides he still hasn't repaid him back enough, so he decides to don the last prototype of the SEM because he knows it's vibrate to find the guy. We go away from that for a while, and we go to Yuga gets ambushed on the train by the crazy person, and she injects him with a sedative. Before he goes under, she challenges him to a duel of the first one to see their mother loses.
Oh my god, this part is so fucked up.
So it turns out crazy person is fucking smoking hot, and her name is Fujiko Taito. She has also tricked Ayaka into becoming her slave by pretending to be Yuga. I know I said tricked, but I think Ayaka, once she got there, like willingly just became her slave or something like that. I think she kind of
I don't know. They didn't really show that
changed
part.
size. Yeah. Turns out,
well,
Fujiko,
I mean, he did make her eat silverware.
Yeah.
I would probably be like, it can't be worse. Like, why don't we try it out? Let's go.
Yeah, so Fujiko is looking for a certain guy with a mane of hair, as she describes it. Apparently, he saved her for some guys that were harassing her for a good time, and she basically falls head over heels for him. Turns out it was Yuga's old friend, Shinosuke. And after spending the night with Fujiko, he left behind an SCM and an apology. He's like, I don't know if I don't even remember. I don't know if I fucked you or not, but I'm sorry. Here's an apology and an SCM.
Why would he? Isn't it? He didn't leave her the SEM. He like had it on the ground by the bed.
Okay, either he
like,
accidentally dropped it or he left it to
on
her
his way out.
Yeah, but it turns
and this
out
tells me that this dude is just a giant airhead because you don't leave something on the ground that's worth several $1,000s. Like, whoops.
So apparently, Yuga and Shinosuke used to have a partnership where they had got some of these SCMs and they were going to sell them and whatnot, but then that's who Yuga stole the money from, I guess, so because they were going to start a business or something like that also. Fujiko puts Yuga under again after the conversation. He wakes up like bound and gagged in his room and naked, and his mom like walks in, so he loses that deal, and like she's like, ah! When she sees it, like this
is amazing.
This basically just broke Yuga.
He turns around real quick.
Any confidence Yuga had left is it's gone. He's been just totally...
but she uses that to make sure she wins because his sense of embarrassment and utter humiliation makes him feel like he lost, like for sure.
Yeah.
So that's why she did that, which makes sense to me. It's not an edge play. Like, 'cause I knew Bcom would be like, this was dumb. And I'm like, no, there's a reason she did this.
No, the only thing I thought was dumb about that scene is that he just didn't keep his eyes closed.
No, his mother seeing him.
No, it's if he sees his mother
sees his
first.
mother.
So if he kept his eyes closed, he wins. Like, eventually, you know?
I don't know. He's panicking.
I think he still would have been so humiliated that it would have triggered the feeling.
It was like too humiliating
loss.
for him to like react calmly.
Yeah,
but the point is, this has broken him, and you see this in the rest of the show. He's then instructed to go to a destination and enslave Aya and Zushi and to also not answer any of her calls. Excuse me. He goes and gets ambushed by a mystery person. They challenge him to rock, paper, scissors, and because it's actually Aya, she knows how to trick him and wins. It turns out, back on the train, Yuga had called Aya with the phone in his pocket, and she figured out the rest from there. Now it seems that
because
Aya,
she's fucking smart.
Yeah, she's
really smart. Mm-hmm.
So Aya has decided to participate in this grand SCM game and make everybody her slave and let them go free once she has enslaved everyone. Yuga becoming a slave at the hands of Fujiko, like I said, seems to have broken him, and Aya finally takes center stage, and I'm so happy she did. The first thing you do is find a hostess named Seichi Shibuya and enslave her.
She enslaves her, right?
From the first episode.
Saki Shibuya is an innocent person, you would say, right?
She's enslaved by. She's from the first episode. She was
so she's like an innocent bystander.
Well, okay, but wouldn't you admit that she's better enslaved in the hands of Aya than in the hands of the first guy who enslaved her, who raped her in the first episode? But wouldn't you agree that she's better off with Aya? No, she is. Remember, in the first episode, she got enslaved by that guy.
The guy makes her have sex with her.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember? But then she enslaves him afterwards, guys. She's not enslaved by anyone after that.
No, that's a different.
Who are you thinking
girl.
About?
Oh, you're talking about the
you're getting
first
two
girl.
Characters.
Okay, I thought you were talking about Lucy.
Yeah,
okay, never mind.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so she enslaved her first, and then that's when she makes her grand statement of enslaving everybody and then letting them go at once. It's the only way she can possibly end this game, I guess, and confiscate all the SCMs at the same time, I would have to say. So
it's just weird to me, Aya's turnaround. Like, she is forcefully pushed down by Yuga. He tricks her and entraps her into entering into a duel like Zushi and Ayaka. He like enslaves her dog to keep her by his side, and then like reveals that he's like a total asshole and he only likes slavery because he was bored with school and women. And then like in this episode, like I guess you could say she does everything she does to get her dog back. But then afterwards, she's like, I'm going to go get me some slaves now. This is before you know that she's going to do it to set everyone free. Like, so it's such a weird, like, tonal whiplash with Aya, these two episodes. She makes, like, a complete 180. The fact that she even comes back to help him, like, they should have explained better that she was coming back to get Zushi, not to help him at all.
But like I said before, I think the whole point is to make you question Aya throughout this series, because part of the time she seems like the hero, and then part of the time she seems like the villain, and you're not sure, and it switches a lot, and it's trying to make you think, like, is she going to end up doing the right thing, or is she going to end up doing the wrong thing? Like, that's the whole point.
Yeah, is she going to keep all the slaves in the end or not? Who knows?
And then, like, I don't know, like, the thing she was most upset about was, like, how he was dragging, like, innocent people into becoming slaves. And it seems like she's going to have no problem doing that now, as long as the ends justify the means. Like, I don't
think she's going to grab anybody who's not already part of the game.
Yeah, it's probably true. I mean, if they stick to that, that would be good, because otherwise it's kind of like a betrayal of her character.
If there's somebody that's already participating in the game, I don't think you can label them as innocent.
I mean, I guess there's like
if
different
they were tricked
levels.
into it, they're innocent in a different way, but they're still part of the game. And if she's going to get everybody, she has to get them at some point. So
I also don't think Yuga is completely broken. Like, I still think he's going to end up being like the final boss of this series against Aya.
Oh, he's totally going to keep
he's broken
being
for now at
conniving.
least.
Yeah. Like, he wants slaves. Like, it's very clear that he just wants slavery because he's excited by it at this point.
And I could see him scheming behind her back. So.
Yeah. Like, he may be playing her
I don't know.
now to get, because, like, the whole way it's presented, like, when she comes and, like, helps him out, and she's like, I kept my word to you from back then, which is so weird, because, like, he didn't keep his word to her at all about anything. So, like,
I think that's just proving to us that she is supposed to be a better person.
I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, why not just go to the police, you know?
I don't know how that would go down. I guess, why doesn't any of them go to the police?
That's why I think,
if you went to the police and you were like, oh, people are using weird retainers to control me, like, do you really think the police would be like, oh, we believe you, we're going to be right on this? Or do you think they'd be like, it's time for you to go to the psych ward?
I think the researchers from the lab, who the professor committed suicide, would probably have gone to the police after that. Like, I think in real life, they would have said, okay, let's go to the police, present our evidence, and, like, get something figured out, because we can't let this be in the hands of crazy
evidence,
people.
just other people's eyewitnesses that worked on it, because he stole everything, so.
It doesn't say he deleted all the files or anything like that.
Well, it shows him downloading all the files and taking them for himself, so you just assume he doesn't leave any research data for them. He just takes it all for himself.
I mean, that's a lot of assumptions to make. I don't know. This show jumped the shark with the fucking talking dog, and for everybody.
And you called him sentient, and I'm like, all dogs are sentient. So
but like,
whatever.
There's a level of sentience and intelligence that this dog has that are just like, okay.
I mean,
I just think it was written so it was easy for us to go with it.
My dog can open doors with her mouth. She's figured that out.
They're called the Houdinis of the dog world for a freaking reason. Pretty
much.
Yeah.
So those are two crazy episodes of Doreiku. I don't know. It was weird.
Well, you didn't kill each other. I'm proud of you both. You managed to avoid an all-out war. Hooray!
All right, moving on to Hisone to Masotan, episode 5. Do you really think there's anybody who likes to be disliked? It's the title of this episode. So, the Vice Minister Iboshi, he's discussing his thoughts on the OTF program with Commander Sosada, and he talks about how one of the requirements on the aptitude exam for becoming a D pilot is that the girls needed to be incapable of feeling self-love, so that they could, like, submit to, like, the humiliation that is, like, being ingested by one of these dragons. And he sees it as like kind of a deal of equality. Like the dragons are giving up their freedom of their own movement to the pilot, while the pilots are like giving up their freedom of spirit, is the way that he puts it. So in this way, like the D pilots can discover themselves for the first time, like through like merging with like the dragon and like learning lessons from it. That's like the whole idea. It's kind of cheesy, but I get what they're going for.
It sounds like Twisted Pretzel logic to me.
Yeah.
But it had a certain like dark fairy tale vibe. So
Right.
I'll take it.
Yeah. So in this
Whatever.
case, of course, Penguin or Eru Hoshino has not opened her heart to her OTF at all.
Obviously.
Yeah. And Eru's like kicking herself about what happened. And there's a funny scene where she's talking out loud as she's like washing up in the bath. And like it turns out like she imagines that she hears like Hisone talking right next to her. And it turns out like Hisone is just talking out loud right next to her. And so they start like running away. And like after running away from Hisone, like in the locker room, like she forgot her bra, and so of course she bumps into Zaito when she's not wearing a bra, and like she ends up like slapping him across the face because he can't take his eyes off her chest. So it's more Zaito being a douchebag. So the girls are told they're going to go to a test exercise in the Sea of Japan with their OTFs, and if they don't perform well, they might be discharged from the whole program. So, like, Hisone's, like, really worried because she and Masotan do not have it together at all. She goes to the hangar and, like, cries because she doesn't want to be taken away. Want to have Masotan taken away from her. And he licks her on the face to cheer her up. So she, like, jumps up on his face and starts licking him back.
No. That is disgusting. And she makes that gross noise, too. Like, that was fucking disgusting.
It was funny.
Don't lick random monsters. No.
So the mission that they have is to escape this uninhabited island with their OTF and return to the base, but they can't use a boat, and the airspace above the island is a no-fly zone, so they can't fly like a traditional plane, but they can, of course, use their OTFs to fly back if they want. But they have to convince their OTFs to do it, and they have a time limit of a week. So they immediately just try to jump in their OTFs and fly, but they won't for some reason. And Vice Minister Yaboshi is watching them from like this drone feed above, and he states that they'll need to use teamwork and that the OTFs will need to accept the feelings of the pilots that they haven't opened up with yet. So Futomomo eats the containers that the girls were like provided with that held like 3 days of rations and water. And so like Hisone like just is able to tear this bag away from Futomomo before he eats it. And it contains this cut off head. Like she cut off the head from the doll that Now made of like the pilot for that like festival. And she uses it as like her Wilson from Castaway with like Tom Hanks, like the little volleyball that she talks to. And she pretends she has Now there to like talk to her and like tell her like, you stupid bitch, go get food. I really liked that part. And I like how Hisone tries to comfort Morris by telling her that there probably aren't any rare metals on the island for Futomomo to eat, because if there were, there'd likely be like a territorial dispute over the island, because that's a reference to actual ongoing like Chinese-Japanese territorial disputes in the Sea of Japan that have been in the news the past couple of years. So that was kind of interesting that they commented on that. Otherwise, Jimmy is like content with sleeping and like just doing like a rain dance to try to get fresh water because she's really lazy. And Eru is just trying to build a raft so they can return to base while leaving the OTFs behind. Hisone goes off to look for a water source and finds a path of Tori, which leads her to a cave where Masotan is sitting in fresh water. And when she returns, she has a fireside chat with Jimmy and Morris where they admit that they all are self-loathing to some degree, but the OTFs have saved them. And they see the OTFs like playing with each other in the water and decide they can like survive for a few days and let the OTFs have fun until the last minute. But like Eru is just stubbornly like refusing to open up. So yeah, that's the first episode of 2. This is really like a 2-parter. Do you guys have any thoughts on this first part?
I don't know. The show's just kind of cut and paste for me. I mean, obviously Eru will come around and they all will be best buds and whatnot.
Right.
I'm not really bothered by the show looks, but I feel like Studio Bones is pulling its punches on this one. Like it just it's not what I know they're capable of. Maybe they have too many other people working on, because they're doing My Hero Academia also at the same time.
They are, yeah.
Yeah.
I also think maybe it was probably supposed to be more appealing to a younger crowd. You know, just like softer tones.
That's what I thought.
Simpler designs. Yeah. That's what I'm kind of feeling. So I guess am enjoying it, but it's just I could probably spend my time on something else maybe.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah. I mean, like, yeah. Oh, what'd you say, Kat?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's kind of built to cater towards a younger audience. You can still watch this show. It's not terrible or anything. It's not the worst show I've ever watched. I'm not like outraged by it, but most of the time I'm just like, ugh, whatever. I did like the weird like snake rain dance thing that Jimmy does. Because before this, I was just like, you're a weird fucking girl. Like, I don't know. And then she did that, and I was like, okay, maybe you're all right. I don't know.
That's funny. You want me? I'll continue on then, since this like really just flows into episode 6. So there's a quick opening scene where the like Joa yogurt woman cryptically gives now a limited edition kiwi yogurt, and like tells her like kiwi is sweeter with the skin on. I don't know what this is supposed to mean, and like she now like refuses to trade it.
I was immediately outraged. I'm like, you cannot eat kiwi skin. Nobody wants to eat kiwi skin. Do you know how prickly and fuzzy kiwi skin is? That is bullshit. You're a crazy person if you eat kiwi skin. That's all I'm saying.
I don't even know if I like kiwis.
They're okay. They're very sweet.
I like kiwi lime pie, but that's not the same thing.
No, key limes are definitely different than kiwis.
Yeah.
So yeah, the girls are on like the 5th day on the island already, and they're actually doing okay, surprisingly. Like, they've been surviving. They've been like fishing and stuff, but they realize that like since Eru has been neglecting her F2 dragon, he might be like super uncomfortable. He seems fine when they go up to him, but Hisone notices something weird when she licks him. Because she licks him because like she feels bad.
Yeah, like, okay, it was one thing for her to lick her own dragon, but now she's licking other people's dragons. Like, there's a personal space issue there.
Cat calls it like the licking other people's monsters.
You should not be licking someone who you are not intimate with, all right? Like, if they are not like your family or you are not fucking them, then you probably shouldn't have your tongue on them. I'm just gonna say, you should keep your tongue to yourself. All right.
Yeah, basically.
That's so good.
So she's interrupted when she starts calling Morris and Jimmy by their tack names because she feels they've grown closer now. And Jimmy tells her to call her Lidikos instead as a nickname. And they all start calling F2 Ken-san because Jimmy admires F2 like Kenshiro from Fist of the North Star, I'm assuming is who she's referring to. And then the girls later discovered that like the cave where Masotan was bathing also contains drawings of the dragons left behind long ago. And it seems this island has a lot to do with their history. So like, despite there being like an incoming storm, the girls see that Eru has like finished building a raft and she's trying to like sail out to sea and just abandon F2 on this island. But before she can get like anyway, her raft just breaks because of the waves and it starts to downpour. And then just like Wilson in Castaway, now San's doll head floats out to sea.
You're stealing it from me, you bitch.
Oh wait, you wrote that too? I didn't know you wrote that as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It was really funny though, because I was like, "Oh, Wilson." So they're interrupted when they hear the sound of like F2's afterburner though going off from another part of the beach, and it immediately transitions right into this dream, this like flashback dream of Eru's training to become the first F2 pilot in Japan. And she remembers seeing this woman who was flying an OTF disguised as an older Japanese plane from like World War II era. And it also seems that like when they all wake up, the others shared that same part of the dream where they saw this woman, which was really cute and interesting. And they tell her like Ken-san, or F2, saved her from being trapped under a pile of logs the night before. And like the way he did it was he blew his afterburners really hard to draw their attention.
Ass out.
Yeah, blew his ass out. Yes. Farted out some beans. Arrow like yells at them for like not for like calling them like whatever they want, calling him Ken-san, and finally like she just lets out all of this stuff that she's been holding in clearly, and it's just like her intense frustration that she went through when she was in the pilot program for the F2, and like all of like the male like officers and like her male classmates like harassed her, and they unfairly expected her to be like twice as good as them to be even on the same level. So she went through all this unfair scrutiny. And it was interesting. I looked into this. Like, female pilots were only admitted into Japan's like ASDF in November of 2015 for the first time. So very, very recently. So like, I think like American pilots maybe like as early as the 90s were allowed female pilots. Maybe even earlier than that. I'm not positive. I didn't really look into that in depth. But so it's very like sort of fresh in Japan's memory. Female pilots joining the military. So she feels that like being forced to become a D pilot has stolen all of her hard work away from her and all that suffering. And she screams like, I wanted to be a real F2 pilot. And at that point, like Ken-san or F2 blows out a bunch of steam and topples over because he overheated himself when he was blowing those afterburners. The girls implore Arrow to like talk to Ken-san because he'll only listen to her. And she says like during training it ignored her orders and it like tried to embarrass her. And Hisone like figures something out at this point. She's like, well, maybe Ken-san was trying to help you do like what you wanted to do, like become the first penguin, which is why he always stayed in his F2 form, because he knew you wanted to be an F2 pilot. And this is where the licking comes back. She's like, well, when I licked him before, he tasted salty, so he was clearly sneaking out at night to like swim in the ocean. But besides that, he's been perfectly disciplined. So yeah. So Eru takes all this in and yells at Hisone to stop calling him Ken-san. And she walks up to F2 and like places her hand on his like scalding hull, like burns her hand, and tells him to like stop being stupid. He's a dragon and he doesn't need to force himself to look like an F2 jet for someone as dumb as her. And finishes by yelling like, please don't die, Norma. So then Norma, who is F2, transforms and eats Eru, and they fly off and dive into the sea to like cool off. And she remembers what she forgot about the first time she flew with Norma, and like how much fun it was and how connected she felt to flying. And this is all like coming back to her now. And like,
this is when I started groaning. It's way too sappy.
It's a little cheesy. Yeah.
It's so cheesy.
And then like Norma howls as like they're getting ready to like fly back to the base, and all the other OTFs on the ground start like howling, and they're all ready to go back. And like later they ask her like, so why did you name Norma? And like Hoshino just responds that like, well, F2 sounds like futsu, which means normal in Japanese. So it's just like Norma is a normal plane. Upon returning to the base, now like runs off to greet the girls, like saying their faces never fail to piss her off. And then Iboshi tells the commanding officers that they're now a step closer to performing the promised ritual, and that the commanders neglected to tell him about this very important piece of information, which is that the Joie yogurt lady was on the base. So if you put two and two together, you could basically figure out the Joie lady is very likely the older D pilot the girls saw in their shared dream.
I've always kind of assumed she was a D pilot at one time.
For sure. It's pretty simple to figure out.
There's something weird going on with her. Whatever.
She really likes that kiwi
She's
skin.
She's a weirdo. Oh, God.
So yeah, I was glad that this episode got into the discussion of Eru's like experience as a woman in the pilot program, because like I thought they were sort of touching on that in earlier episodes, but I'm glad that like they made it clear like this is what has been holding her back, and what has like been her mental hang up about becoming a D pilot is that she feels like it's running counter to all of the work she did to make herself a professional actual pilot that would be respected by the rest of the Japanese Air Force. She doesn't feel like she'll be respected as a D pilot, but hopefully she's past that now. We can move on to different things.
Yeah, I'd just say we just go into the next show.
Yeah, that's fine by me.
All right, so we're finally here. We're finally at Megalo Box, the main event, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so episode 5. The Man from Death. Are you ready? I fell in love with this. I love this episode. I don't know why. Okay, so in the pre-opening scene, the guy that Joe is going to fight next, whose name is Aragaki, is in this war zone type area. And I think that that's Iraq, or like at least the Middle East, because it kind of looks like the Middle East to me. I don't know about you guys.
I don't think it really mattered to the show. It's just...
Yeah,
I don't know, but it looked like it. So it was interesting to me that it kind of looked like it, because like they were all wearing like the scarves and in the desert, but who knows? He sees the body of a woman with what looks like a child under her, but it's actually a bomb, and everything explodes. So then you know the opening plays or whatever. You find out that Aragaki was in the war, and he was able to survive the explosion, and that's why he's got that giant scar on his face. It seems like at this, like the manager is really attached to him, and you kind of see that at this point. And they used to have this really serious bond. And it's clear that the manager has these really good, like fond memories with him. And so the manager and him are like sitting on this bench. The manager just keeps bringing up old times. He's so happy to see him. He's like, I thought you were dead. I'm so glad you're not dead. Aragaki plays along for a while, then sort of turns and reveals how angry he is with the manager. And he just sort of declares, I've decided to destroy him, this boxer you put all your time and attention into. Yeah. And you can tell at this point, Aragaki is like slightly jealous, and he's like also angry. He kind of wants revenge for something that the manager either did to him or something. It's unclear at this point. Mm-hmm. He talks about how it's the manager's turn to pay some of the debt back that he owes him. It's obvious that the manager and Aragaki have very different like memories of their past. The manager goes back to Joe and wants to call off the match. It's true at this point that the manager says like, hey, I taught both of you. You guys are going to have very similar fighting styles. Like, this is going to be difficult for you to win. You're going to know all the same techniques. It seems like the manager really thinks Joe can't beat him. Sachio at this point tells all of us that, well, Aragaki has no legs. They were blown off in the explosion. He's got these high-tech prosthetics instead. And Sachio thinks that because of this, Joe really does have a better chance than Nambu is giving him. Then you find out later on in the episode that Aragaki's anger towards Nambu comes from the fact that even though Nambu thought he was dead, he gave up on him way too easily and moved on with his life. And was just like, well, I guess he's dead. And like never went to his funeral, never tried to seek him out to like visit his grave, etc. Because if he had, he would have found out he wasn't actually dead, right? So I do kind of get why Aragaki is angry at him. But like,
yeah, but at the same time, like Nambu, you kind of feel for him a little bit because he's completely crushed. I mean, like this was his prize winner, and now without him, his life is probably going to go to shit. And it did a little bit to his fault for it, but yeah, still.
Well, but his life was always shit. I don't know. I feel like Aragaki just sees the manager as a symbol of the world in general and how he's just pissed off at the world. Like he's pissed off that he feels like he went off to war and he came back and the world had just left him behind.
Right. Yeah.
And no one gave a shit about him.
Directly addressing issues war veterans deal with when they return home from war. Yeah. I feel like that's exactly what they were going for. And it was kind of neat to see it.
Yeah,
actually be put in the show
really
because it could be a very sensitive subject, and I think they handled it very well.
I think they handled it extremely well. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. And you see he's clinging to the past. He isn't moving forward. And he's bitter towards anyone able to move forward when he feels like he's just stuck in place. I don't know. I think Nambu had a much more accurate view of the whole situation, though, because he just says, we just went different ways. And that's kind of really what happened, if you think about it. Like, despite all the anger that Aragaki feels, like, they just kind of went different ways. But then you see Nambu later feeling a little bit guilty. And he kind of is like, I forgot about him. Like, he never existed. I buried his life because it was convenient for me.
Right.
I don't know. I think this is a case of Nambu cares about Aragaki in the same way that he cares about Joe. But we've seen him screw Joe over too, even though he cares about him, right? Like when you live in a very difficult economic situation like they are living, and you've seen them live, you have so much immediate shit happening all the time being thrown at you. Like all that caring about other people and how they're doing tends to kind of bleed away into the background as you're constantly worried about am I gonna have enough food? Am I gonna have somewhere to sleep tonight? Like you worry about yourself first because that's just natural when you're in that kind of situation all the time.
Yeah.
And then because of that, in that kind of lifestyle, everything tends to stay more shallow and people get separated easier and life just moves on faster. And that's kind of how Nambu has always lived. And so that makes sense to me that was his quote, is like, we just went separate ways, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. And then at this point, they go into the fight. Within a minute of the fight starting, Aragaki's got him like down in what looks like a KO immediately.
Yeah.
The image of him falling backwards was really great art. I don't necessarily like how they started the fight in the last like 4 minutes of the episode. It seemed like bad timing to start a fight like that.
I think it's a cliffhanger to really get you want to watch the second episode because the fight just literally started.
Well, but the cliffhanger would have been if they were like ding ding and the fight started and then they ended the episode.
That might have been cliche though.
That's true. I don't know. I got really caught up in the story they were telling. But also they spent a lot of time on this and I keep getting worried that they're not going to have enough time to properly finish this whole story. I don't know.
I felt it was okay because while they were building up this character, this fight as well, they were building up Nanbu as his coach and giving him like a backstory that we could identify with and understand. Mm-hmm. So I felt like it wasn't wasted time.
Totally love. Yeah. It wasn't at all. I totally love Aragaki's character. As I talk about in the next episode, I kind of fell in love with this character.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Well,
I mean, yeah, but, I believe he's a very likable character.
Yeah.
At the end of that also. Mm-hmm. But before we move on to the next episode, I just want to say, because I always talk about the soundtrack, but the piano that is playing while they argue about canceling the match just sold that scene so hard for me. It fit so stinking well.
Yeah, I went back and listened to that after I saw that you had written that down, and I thought it was really well done.
Yes. Oh, so nice.
So episode 6, which is called Until the Last Dog Dies, which is just a great fucking title. Joe gets up before the 10 count ends at the end of the last episode and continues the fight. So he reminds Aragaki that I'm the one you need to beat, not Nambu over there. I'm the one. And so Aragaki turns out to be a difficult opponent because he uses his prosthetic legs really well to get inside, and he's like an excellent counter puncher. And so Nambu at first has like no clue how to deal with him at all. Like he's taught him everything he knows. He doesn't know how to counter this. So he wants to, like, Nambu wants to throw in the towel, but Joe tells him like this is a one-way train with no stops. And throughout the fight, we see like flashbacks to Aragaki training with Nambu. And the constant refrain seems to be Nambu telling Aragaku that tomorrow, or Ashita, like Ashita no Joe, will be a brighter day. So a couple weird things about this fight. There's no referee in the ring. Also, there's no like 3 knockout rule, it seems like, in Megalo Boxing, because Joe just keeps going after being knocked down 3 times, which they really don't care about the boxer's well-being in Megalo Boxing at all. I think it's just accepted, like, if you're going to be a Megalo Boxer, you're probably going to die anyway. So Joe starts to get in Aragaki's head by repeatedly saying out loud, like, split it evenly, 50-50. He's like referring to like keeping his weight even on both legs, which is something Nambu taught both of the fighters. And because of this, Aragaki starts like losing his cool. And in the middle of like trying to punch Joe and like avoid him, he has like a PTSD flashback of punching through a window on the battlefield. And this gives Joe an opening, like when he's not really like paying attention, to counterpunch. And he knocks Aragaki down finally, but not out. He gets back up. So
I think
sorry.
The more that Aragaki, like, the more that Joe says, like, split it evenly 50-50, the more Aragaki sees Joe, like, as his past self. And that's why it's irritating him so much.
Definitely.
He's seeing this as, like, his chance to almost defeat his past self and move forward with his life.
Right.
I don't know. I was also really glad to see Aragaki get back up after he knocked him down, because until now, it feels like Joe just gets like countless chances to get back up in every single match. And yet, like, every time that Joe punches someone, oh, the fight's over. Like, so it was nice to finally see someone get back up.
Aragaki's determined.
Yeah.
So yeah, as the fight goes on, Joe sort of becomes the counter puncher. But like both boxers are still like continuing to like seriously damage each other. And there's this one moment where there's like a 360-degree camera swivel around both of them as they're just like going at it and like pummeling each other. It was a great shot. And like importantly though, like in the midst of this, Aragaki starts having some issues with his prosthetic legs. So at the end of 4 rounds, like after that great round of they're going back and forth, Aragaki's in his corner and he thinks about those words that Nambu used to say to him, like, for tomorrow. And he like kind of like nods to his coach and basically says like, I'm not coming out for the next round. And so they forfeit the match. And so as he walks to the locker room with his trainer's help, his coach tells him that it was like a great last fight. But he also wasn't about to let the fight continue until Aragaki could never walk again. And so Nanbu comes and he visits Aragaki in the locker room, and he sees that like he's taken like his right prosthetic leg off and there's blood all over and around his like knee joints. So he was clearly like injured during the fight. And so Aragaki tells Nambu that like a fight with Joe and Nambu seemed like a good chance for closure for him. Like the doctors were telling him he was risking being bedridden if he continued to fight anyway. So he tells Nambu that like tomorrow starts today for me, and that he's like come to peace with the path his life has taken. So we get a flashback that like, or like we saw earlier in the episode, maybe before Aragaki had left to go to war, Nambu had bet everything on a dog race to try and like treat him to like a nice dinner, like just do one nice thing for him. But he lost, but he still gave like the ticket to Aragaki as like a kind of good luck charm. Like, here's my bad luck, it'll be your good luck. And so
It also explained a scene earlier where we weren't quite sure what that piece of paper was about.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so Aragaki returns it to him now and says, hey, give this to Joe, because this ticket literally saved my life when I was on the verge of suicide. And it shows him like grabbing onto the ticket for dear life when he had gotten back from the war and he had like lost his legs and he didn't know what to do with himself. And like holding onto that one thing kept him going.
It's more than that, though. That's a really dark scene.
Yeah.
Like, I give this episode a lot of credit for the way they handled that scene. Like, it's obvious, like, he's really been down some shit roads, you know, and he's pulled himself out of it. And, like, as he was struggling at the end to keep going against Joe, I just found myself wanting Aragaki to win like a lot more than I've ever wanted Joe to win. And at that moment, I think I kind of fell in love with Aragaki as a character, and I was just like, can he be our new protagonist? Can we just switch to him being the main focus of this entire anime?
That's what I think the best sports anime do, is they make the opponent just as likable as the protagonist in some ways. Like Haikyuu is brilliant at that, like making the opposing teams just as interesting, just as much you want to root for them as the main team of guys. And yeah, it's so good.
But this was even more than that. Like, he's such a deep character. He's not just likable. He's just like they put a lot of depth into him, and I want to see more of him, and I'm pissed because I know like now it's over and we're probably not going to see him again.
Probably.
Maybe he may get a scene or two. You never know, making like commentary or something.
Possibly,
on the show. Yeah, that would be cool.
At the very end, they introduced the next boxer, right? Probably like the next guy Joe might fight, but it's the third guy who gets into the Megalonia tournament. His name is Glenn Burrows, or the Bloody Lion. And like alongside Yuri and the other guy, Pepe Iglesias, they make out 3 of the 4 spots in the tournament. So clearly Joe is fighting for that 4th spot, and that's where we are at this point.
Also, that blonde fighter named Burrows at the end is such a diva. Like, look at his face every time the spotlight is off of him for like a second. He's like, oh, how dare they? Go ahead, Leo.
I got a thing or two about this episode and what I want this series to do from this point. I usually don't pay attention to how time works in anime because you'll just worry yourself to death. But it really stood out to me in the first 2 rounds. In the first one, there's a shot of the clock at 1:35. And then 2 minutes later in the anime, it's only at 1:11. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And then round 2 practically ends in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
It was jarring for me. It kind of pulled me from the show. I was like, what the heck? The fight felt really good towards the end with them just going at each other. You both said you liked that too. What I really want to see this anime go is I want to see Joe finally get some beer. Beer.
Well, that might help him too.
Yeah, I think he's had beer a couple times already in the show.
Yeah.
Drunken boxing next.
Yeah, so I want to really see him
Megalo
get some gear soon. I know we were all just dismissing the fact that the gear would just pulverize people's skulls like what a bulldozer would do to like a toy car or like a watermelon.
Yeah.
But the fact that Joe can stand up against opponents with the gear would mean he is way, way, way better than the opponents he has been facing and would have practically won his matches flawlessly if he had his own gear. Are we supposed to believe he's superhuman? I just want them to give him some gear already. It also seems like the show has gotten less flashy, and I hope when and if Joe gets gear that they bring back the slow motion and the sparks, because that shit was tight as fuck in the first couple episodes. Yeah,
Yep.
I just really wanted to bring that back, and I think I would be, because a lot of people are kind of getting iffy about the show now, and I feel like if they brought the gear back, everybody would be right back there full on.
I think clearly the solution is not to bring the gear back; it's to bring Aragaki back.
Oh my god!
Oh boy, she's really head
him-
over heels. Anyway, I can understand.
Bring back my boy. That's all I'm saying.
Jesus.
All right, let's move on to the next show.
All right.
Love is Hard for Otaku. Episode 5, introducing Naya and Gamers Meetup Part 2. Narumi and Hirotaka are having breakfast when Hirotaka falls asleep, and Narumi overhears some girls talking about these 2 new drinks at a store, and she ends up just going to it. She orders a drink and has this really stupid long name. It's awful, and they say it 3 fucking times. She says it, and then the girl at the register says it, and then the barista has to fucking say it. Why?
Oh, I even wrote the fucking name
did
down
you?
because it was so long, and it's just giant Japanglish. It's special berry yogurt on top with crushed nuts and extra whipped cream. Regular size desu. And that's how they say it.
Okay, now
With
you have
all
to say
the
it 2 more
oohs.
fucking times because that's what fucking anime
That is honestly
say.
simpler than things I've heard people in New York order at Starbucks. Though it's far
Okay.
simpler and far less words than I've heard before.
But it's so fucking Japanglish it hurts. I don't know. It's terrible.
But when the barista gives her drink, they suddenly recognize each other, and he invites Narumi to sit with him on his break. But Taro and Hanako see this and are worried because the other 2 seem to really be getting along. And Hanako thinks it's an ex, and Taro wants to get up and go find out, but Hanako tells him not to interfere. But then Hanako secretly invites Hirotaka, who sits down beside them. When he sees the other 2, he gets up to go and talk to them, much to Taro's surprise. But the barista turns out to be Hirotaka's younger brother, Naya. Is that how you guys say his name?
Yeah, now yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then also Naya wants to stay at Hirotaka's place at night since it's close to his campus. And then Narumi invites herself over. And then guess what? Everybody ends up there.
Yeah, as usual.
Second part.
So
Yeah.
first of all, before we go into the second part, doesn't he just collapse at the table and fall asleep, Hirotaka?
Yeah, that was
and
the very
then-
beginning.
Yeah.
And then Narumi's
first line
just
is-
oh well,
Yeah,
and then
she
just
just leaves
walks
him.
away.
Yeah, my first
Like,
line is
what the
Narumi and
fuck?
Hirotaka are having breakfast when Hirotaka falls asleep.
Why is she not concerned? She's just well, I guess he just passed out. Bye.
I don't know. Maybe
fuck?
it's a common thing for Japan. People, I mean, I know that they say that, people who are found asleep at their desk are viewed as hard workers because they're working that hard or something like that. So
My
Okay.
question for you guys was going to be how would you handle a situation like this where you're your
Oh.
friends sitting at a table with a guy that you don't know who this guy is, and
Well, this is
yeah.
a very common thing,
Yeah.
right? You always see these sorts of things where one of your friends is cheating on another, or you saw your friend in a compromising position,
God.
and you don't know when you are in a friend group like that where everyone is friends with each other.
Yeah.
Should you say something? Should you not? Do you get involved? Do you choose to pretend you didn't see anything? And you have those 2 types of people. The first type's it's none of our business, and then the other type's I'm gonna get all in on this business. You know?
okay, if I was in this exact situation, I would I would honestly just let them do whatever they're talking to him with or about, and then afterwards I'd be like, what was that about?
So that's different that's different how I'd handle it. I would go up to them and just be like, "Oh, hey, I'm this person. Who are you?" and have her like introduce him to me.
See, I have a lot of female friends, and my female friends have a lot of guy friends. Like I told you guys earlier, I had a dinner with earlier this week with a bunch of friends, and it was my friend Erica, and there was her husband, and then what was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dudes. To her reveal of that she's pregnant. So like that's like my group of friends, and then I could easily go to another group of friends and it's just me and one of the other 2 guys, and then like 5 girls.
Right.
So we all kind of know what's going on with everybody. We don't play that high school game shit anymore. That's a no-go.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yep.
And if one of us saw another one like straight up cheating, we would probably confront that person at first, be like, what the fuck's going on, and let them explain their side, and they'd be like, I'm going to tell your significant other anyways, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of how we would do it. But we have an interesting group of friends, everybody always tells me so. I'm the only anime nerd though a couple of the guys have watched One Punch Man and fucking loved it, and I've told 2 of them that we will be watching Megalo Box once it's done airing, because I know they will like that.
You're not going to turn them on to Doreiku immediately?
Maybe. I've actually discussed this with Kyle. I may ask him to check out 3 episodes and just let me know what he thinks.
Okay.
Leo's like, I'm gonna double down on this.
Or Leo, we stopped before the second part though, so you want to tell us what happened in the second part?
The second part, everybody ends up at Hirataku's place, and they get concerned when they realize Nayu isn't an otaku. They end up playing video games, and Naya is absolutely terrible at them. Things get funny when Taro thinks Nayo is hitting on Narumi and tells him she has a boyfriend, and Nayo thinks Taro is talking about himself, and he gets all flustered trying to correct the situation until Hanako just grabs Taro and just by the tie and just fucking smacks one on his lips. So I was like, yay! They then explain that Narumi and Hirotaka are actually the ones dating, and Naya is so happy he starts crying because he thought, Hirotaka would be like lonely his whole life or something like that. And that's really the big gist of the second part. It was just kind of funny little stuff here and there.
Oh, I thought,
like especially especially when Naya was like playing the game and he's just like, they're just giving one example to the next after how fucking awful he is.
Yeah.
Like, he's invincible. Oh, why the fuck did you just fall off the map?
Yeah, they're definitely playing Super Smash Brothers, and like he just keeps walking off the platforms, which is pretty bad. I thought some people might think that Taro was kind of an ass for not letting Naoya walk Narumi to the station, but honestly, Narumi and Hirotaka weren't about to like clarify the situation to each other either. So I think Taro is just honestly avoiding a really awkward situation for Narumi where Naoya might have started hitting on her like on the way home, and then like she would have had to deal with that.
They've grown up together, and it's pretty obvious that he doesn't feel that way about her. And also, like, even if he did, Narumi is a grown woman. Like, she can tell him that she's not interested in him herself. Like, I don't like how they have this weird dynamic between Kabakura and Narumi, or Taro. I don't know,
or whatever.
Taro.
I think it's his last name's Kabakura. Yeah.
Because it's really weird. It causes a lot of conflict between Taro and Hanako in the end.
Yeah.
Like, because Taro is always acting kind of like he likes Narumi. And I know they kind of play it off like he's like a father figure to her, and that's partly true.
No, he
also
looks
not
at her
100%.
As like a daughter type. Is how they
but
play
not
it.
really. Like they kind of play it that way,
they
but
say
it's also
as
clear
he's acting like a father.
Yeah, but it's also clear that's not like 100% of how he feels, right? Like, he kind of has a weird idolish thing with her.
Yeah, but I don't think it's sexualized in any way.
Well, it's not like, ooh, dangerous or anything, but it is a little weird that they chose to have this weird dynamic.
A little bit, but then also I want to say Taro and Hanako's relationship, they clearly sleep together. I think that's in the second episode where that's mentioned.
I was gonna say they're definitely, as Pro ZD would say, they fucking.
oh yeah, like I'm not saying like seriously he's interested in her, but it's obvious like there's a little bit of chemistry between the two of them, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's a little weird to me that they keep emphasizing this dynamic. I don't know. It's a little odd.
I don't see that at all. But
Well, tell us about the next episode. We should move on to that.
okay.
Yeah, Kat.
All right. So episode 6 is called Bleak Christmas. Okay. The episode starts out with Taka basically like condoning Taro for a photo shoot as Narumi and Hanako just gleefully take pictures in the background. When it does these kind of jokes, it really makes me laugh because it reminds me of the kind of humor that was in Kiss Him, Not Me. I don't know if you watched that.
I watched some of that, and that's totally true. It's very much the same feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love when shows make fun of Fujoshi, like, in a good-natured way.
Right.
Like, not in a, like, oh, those fucking Fujoshis, you know what I mean? But kind of ribbing us. Like, it's good. So it's raining, and both Hirotaka and Narumi have forgotten their umbrellas, and Taru scolds the pair of them for being adults for years and still forgetting, and gives Narumi his umbrella, since he has nothing he minds getting wet, unlike both of them. And plus, he's being all fatherly towards Narumi again, let's be honest. He runs into the rain, and eventually Taro runs into Hanako, who scolds him for not having his umbrella, just as he did earlier, and she insists that she's coming over to his house because she's worried about him and is staying over. And then Taro just thinks to himself, he's like, I decided I love raining days and I can go buy my book another time. And I'm like, oh yeah, Taro's getting some tonight.
Definitely.
yeah.
Yep. And then the next day, it's subtle, but it becomes clear that Narumi is upset about something. And then they confirm it by pointing out that she hasn't tweeted. I guess I'm just always upset because I don't fucking tweet all the time.
I love that. He's like, she hasn't tweeted since lunch. Oh, yeah, something's very wrong then.
Hirotaka decides he should cheer her up by taking compromising photos of himself with Taro. And then Hanako points out that Narumi is more likely to like Hirotaka in the dominant role. And then Hirotaka is kind of like, well, but I feel uncomfortable with that. And then Taro flips and gets upset and is like, am I being rejected? That was really funny. So they have this serious scene later that night where Hirotaka tells Narumi that it's really frustrating when she doesn't always talk to him about her problems, which is, I think, a real thing that happens in a lot of relationships. They have this pretty serious heart-to-heart, but then she finally tells him why she's upset, and it's just because her favorite manga character died. And it's just like, wah, wah, wah.
She needed time to recover.
Yeah. And then Narumi and Hanako talk about how Christmas is coming up and what they're going to do for it. And apparently Christmas was terrible for Hanako and Taro last year because Taro is always really stressed out with deadlines as a manager during this time of the year. And he snapped at her and they had a huge fight. And you see Taro kind of snapping at Hirotaka for his work throughout this episode. And so it's clear the same sort of thing is happening as last year. And Hanako isn't getting her hopes up. Then it flashes to Narumi and Hirotaka having an informal date on Christmas Eve. And they're walking down the street together when they spot Hirotaka's brother dressed as Santa in front of the Starbucks he works at. And the three of them remember how Christmas was when they were younger. And the flashback scene is sort of like not needed, but cute. Like you see Hirotaka as a big brother. Mm-hmm. They make a cute joke about him being a side character with not enough like stats or whatever. And then at the end of this episode, Taro surprises Hanako with a very fancy Christmas dinner. And it's clear he's worked like especially hard so that he could get off in time to take her out on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
I thought it was really good seeing Taro put some real fucking effort into showing Hanako that he cares about her, because he often takes Hanako for granted. And I think he's a really great guy. Like, I like Taro as a character, but this is one of those really common relationship scenarios that you see all the time in real life, where it's not that one person is bad or anything. Like, they're a fun person, they're good to be in a relationship, but they tend to take the other person in that relationship for granted, right?
Yeah.
And they never put enough work into the relationship. And so it doesn't like die right away, but over the years it wears down, and then eventually they split up. I've seen that happen so many times.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I can just only hope that Taro keeps up this new effort that he's putting in, because if he doesn't, like, it's not going to be good long term for the two of them. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I will say that at the end of this episode, I would like to see some like physical development between Narumi and Hirotaka. I'm getting a little worried that like
now
not
you're
enough has
stealing my
happened.
notes.
Oh, I know. I did a little bit. Although they do bring up a lot of common adult relationships and conflicts, which I think is nice and a little bit unique. I don't see a lot of anime where they do that kind of thing, but yeah, I would like to see them moving along a little bit, especially since this is only, is it 11 episodes?
Yeah, that's a Noitamina show, so only 11. Yeah.
Woo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but going off what Kat said, the lack of progression in their relationship, physically or mentally, this episode just really irks me. It was all just setups for jokes, and I really need these two to figure this shit out, you know?
Yeah.
At this point, I feel Taro and Hanako are doing a better job of making their relationship better than the other two. I hope that at the end, Taro proposes to Hanako by the final episode. So
That would be cute. Yeah. Yeah, I only slightly disagree with you, Leo, on the mental part of their progression, because I think the conversation that they had in the hallway about like, why don't you think I'm dependable enough to like tell me what's going on, like, and then like she has to like kind of like realize like she's hiding things from him. And that was like a good like, we need to get past this relationship barrier moment. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with you, Bcom. I think they're making progress mentally. They're just not making any physical progress. So.
All right, but we should move on to the next thing.
yay!
Mm-hmm.
All right, and that show, as you could tell from Leo's gleeful cheering, is Hinamatsuri. Episode 5, Three Heads Are Better Than One. So, for some reason, I was kind of unclear on this. Anzu has like a lot of time on her hands now. Like, she's still homeless, but they make it out like she's got all the time in the world now, and she's really bored. Like, I figured she would still be collecting cans every day and stuff. Maybe
she found that sweet ass spot where she can get a ton of cans at once.
I guess that's it. Like, so she doesn't have to spend as much time, so she has more time to do stuff. But she realizes she needs more money because like she's super jealous that Hina has like a handheld video game console, and like she wants something like that for herself, and she wants to be able to play games with Hina. So Hina helps Anzu look for TVs because they heard you can sell them to this homeless guy that resells them again. And so they find a bunch of like CRTs sitting down like by the river. And he's like, I'm only going to pay like 10 yen each for those because nobody wants CRT TVs anymore. Like, if you find an LCD TV, I'll like pay you more. But like Hina's super lazy, right? So she calls Hitome to come help out. And Anzu is surprised that Hitome even knows like Hina as well. So they kind of like all form a group now. So Hina basically sleeps while ants start crawling all over her face and into her mouth. She wakes up when they get in the mouth, though. But like, Hitome basically figures out like, my family has this old LCD TV that we're throwing out. So like, she takes it from home. Like, her mom even packed it up in a box, and she like takes it to drop it in an alley so that like Anzu can like find it, quote unquote, by herself later. But a police officer notices her, and she's like, the police officer's like, what the hell are you doing? Like, so before we get back to that, like Hina on the other hand, oh wait, no, never mind. Like, yeah, the police officer just like takes her to the office and scolds her for like doing whatever she's doing. Hina, on the other hand, sees that there's a plenty of TVs just waiting to be bought in the store. So she goes to the bar and just sees Nita and is like, I need money and for a TV. And he's like, we already have a TV. And she's like, it's not good enough. And he's like, fine, take like however many yen, go, just to get rid of her. And so she buys a TV, and then she takes a taxi to the homeless guy. And like Hitome also shows up at the same time trying to sell her own TV. And the homeless guy is like, both of these TVs are like brand new. What the hell's going on?
Yeah, his reaction is pretty good.
And like Hitome like ends up with a fair bit of cash from like selling these two TVs. And it's just funny because like the taxi driver is like, what's going on too? Like, she pays him with like the rest of the cash, and like eventually like Nita finds out about all this, and he's like, you did what with that money? But he doesn't really care, honestly. But yeah, because he's like, well, Anzu just wanted to play games with Hina anyway, so whatever. So in the second half, two boys from Hitomi's class.
Best part.
Yeah.
Yes, this is the most hilarious part of the episode. Okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
Yeah, the two boys from Hitomi's class notice that she and her teacher are walking into her bar one after another, and they just instantly jump to the conclusion that the teacher is fucking her. Instantly, just they're in a sexual relationship. That's the only thing this could be. What else would it be? So
No, they're an illicit sexual relationship, and they're imagining what's happening
Yes.
inside the bar, and they're like, "What's next? He grabs her boobs. I can't imagine any further." I'm just like, what? I guess they're middle school boys, so it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
But most middle school boys can imagine further. I don't know. Plus, aren't they in front of a sex toy shop while they have this conversation?
maybe I didn't notice that.
Did anyone else notice that?
I didn't notice that. That's hilarious. So these two guys they rope in Hitomi's friend Aizawa as well as Hina into just playing detectives to crack this case. And Aizawa greatly enjoys grilling Hitomi about what she's really been doing, because when she grills her, Hitomi just panics, and Aizawa just thinks it's the cutest thing. She's oh, she's so cute when she's panicking.
Aizawa has basically discovered that she's a sadist, basically.
Yes.
Because she just loves fucking with Hitomi so much. I don't know.
So the two guys, though, they let their curiosity get the best of them when Hitomi is asked to go to the prep room with the teacher, and they're oh no, what are they doing in there? And they're I can't stand it, I have to open the door. And they just run in there and they knock a bunch of printouts out of her hands that she was supposed to bring back to the class. So that's all that was. But they're still suspicious of her. So all four detectives or whatever go stake out the bar again that night, and they see Hitomi enter, but not the teacher. So they're oh, maybe she's just a prostitute then. Maybe it's just different guys. And
Jump into some crazy ass conclusions is all I can say.
but it's funny because Nita arrives immediately after they think that, and they're oh, here's the guy. No. So they all run into the bar, and Hitomi, when she sees them, makes a face that's straight out of Junji Ito, horrified, lots of rough lines drawn, just
Yeah,
horrified.
I made a specific comment about that.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I said the horror on her face was better animated than anything in the Ito Junji collection.
That's kind of true. So, God, she gathers herself eventually and tells them bars aren't a place for children. She tries to play it dumb, she's somebody else. And eventually Aizawa just asks her if she's all right, and Hitomi promises that she's okay. And when she's saying that, she says, "I'm okay, Sayo." And then she's how'd you know my name was Sayo? And then she just does the face again, she's been caught once again.
Yes.
So eventually Aizawa just to end this, she forces her to say, "I'm a middle school bartender," over and over and over again. And then after she says it 3 times, she's "Now say it cutely like an idol." She does. It's so good. And through
the part where she looked at the adults pleadingly, and they just slowly turned their heads away,
they're
was
laughing.
So good. It's just we're not going to save you.
And one thing I kind of didn't mention is that throughout this entire process, Hina is just what's going on? What is this? What is going on? Just really monotone. She has no idea what the hell is going on this entire time. So she's just tagging along. It was a really good episode. I enjoyed it a lot.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've already said everything I got to say about this episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's what it is. All right, so move on to the next one.
All right. Before I start this, episode 6, Nita-san has a dandy dad. Did either of you shed a tear during this episode?
No, I did not shed a tear. No,
I did not either. But I guess a lot of people really did.
Yeah, this really hit home for a lot of people.
Those people are just wimps.
I don't think so. They could have personal experiences that are tied to this.
Okay, whatever.
So the first half is Hina being introduced to Nita's mother and younger sister, who are very caught off guard that Nita took in a fellow worker's daughter after her mother was shot during dinner and her father killed 2 men and ended up in prison. One of the really funny antics is just Hina has memorized this script. She's my name's Hina. I'm whatever 13 years old. I don't remember anymore, which is really funny.
Well, it goes on for so long that Nita goes into the bathroom and just starts cracking up because he's like, I can't believe I'm pulling this off. I could be an actor. Like,
yeah, some of my favorite acts were just the drunk antics of his sister, which was hilarious, especially the one where she gets on Hina for burning hands with a sparkler, but then like ends up finishing with like some strong sometimes save the week or crush
she's like,
them,
don't
and then
burn
drowns
the
some
ants,
ants
like,
with her beer.
Like no one would use their power like that, and then she pours her beer, drowns all the ants, and she's like, don't worry, the strong must live and the weak will not survive.
What was your favorite comedy scenes from this first half between you two?
Go ahead. I really liked the part where Nita is like forced to cook even though he's the guest.
Yeah.
and she like, doesn't she make him do it by threatening to cook like herself? And she's
she's like, I've been drinking beer all day because I knew you'd be here, so you have to cook. Yeah.
Also, Nita is like the ideal like guy, right? He's like a yakuza who cooks. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we know he can obviously cook. He cooks for Hina and stuff and himself, and his mom and his sister obviously know he's a good cook. So when he shows up, they want him to cook.
I like when
Bcom.
the sister forces him to say that like Hina is his daughter, and the sister's like, say it like an old man, and he just like instantly does. Like he doesn't care. He's just like, she's my daughter. Like, it's just so
that's
good.
a play on the joke from the last episode where they make Hitomi do it in the idol voice.
Oh yeah, very similar to that. I like those jokes where like you like make somebody say something like that.
Yeah, they land very well on this show. It's pretty funny. But moving on to the second part, Anzu finds out the government is kicking all the homeless people out of the park, and she wants to help, but it's basically a done deal, and there's nothing she can do about it, sadly. But the homeless people like throw a farewell party the night before, and like Anzu wants to find a place with everybody, and it prompts one of the homeless men to like yell at her, telling her it's not possible, but he kind of does it because, you know, it's good for her, but it still like makes him teary-eyed that he had to be kind of mean and whatnot.
Yeah. Like he says later, like he felt like when she was saying that it was saying like to him, like, you weren't able to like help me out, like, or like you weren't able to take care of me or everybody else. Like it was his own shortcoming. And he realizes that like he overreacted, but it was like something that hit a nerve with him, basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it turns out they had found a couple to take her in, and she goes in there, and during dinner with them, she feels like she shouldn't be able to eat all the food because she knows the other homeless people would be able to eat this much food, and she feels like she has to pay for it in some way. Mm-hmm. And they're like, no. But then she goes on to wake up the next day. And then she finds the couple opening up their little restaurant that they have. She wants to help out because that's how she's been, you know, taught to earn a living, and she is like very worried about the others, and the shopkeep reassures her in a very heartwarming fashion that I'm not going to attempt because I would just butcher it, but it's very, very good.
Well, I had something to say about that moment because I thought it was one of the best parts of the episode, right? Because like her new foster dad is sensitive enough to understand that like the idea of working to put food on her table, although it was something instilled in her by like a homeless man, Yasan, like it's very meaningful to her. Like it means a lot. And so even though his wife has some objections, he's like, no, let's let her like try working. Like show her how we earn like this food that we eat. He understands that it's important enough to Anzu to like reach out and like, you know, have like a compromise with her.
Yeah. And then she's also, you know, like I said, she's still worried about the homeless people, and she's just so happy about this little scenario that the show just does like a still frame of Anzu smiling / crying. That I guess this is where it wrecked most people. And even the couple who took her in were just like, oh my God, and they start getting the tissues, and they make like a little joke about it. He's like, give me some too.
Yeah, it was a sweet moment for sure.
It was very, very sweet. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I guess we didn't cry. I guess we're heartless people. We don't care about the homeless. But
I was moved.
I guess I am heartless because every time they do one of these meaningful scenes, I'm just like, nah.
Wow, Kat.
I know. I don't know.
The only thing that I thought was kind of strange is like we've gone 2 episodes now where like Anzu and Hina have like not used their like special powers whatsoever. But even so, like I've still been enjoying the show like as much as the other episodes anyway.
That just comes and goes sometimes.
Yeah. I actually didn't notice that at all, Bcom. Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah, it's not, the show's not set up to be, focused on these powers. It's just one of the gimmicks there to make jokes and be funny and be like, and even in the background, Hina has this awesome power, over Nita the whole time. So yeah, that's kind of mainly the point. But yeah, I think I read a good article on Crunchyroll about like how, Hina, Anzu, and Hitomi are like 3 different parts of like of emotions or something like that. And it was just really good. I thought it was funny.
Right.
And it also explained why this show is like so awesome, because like each half episode, each show episode is basically divided in 2, and it focuses on 1 of 3 girls every single time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's strong, and all 3 girls are interesting enough to follow too. They're all good characters. So yeah.
Oh yeah, I all 3 are freaking hilarious. And, oh man, but that's all I got.
All right. Well, then we should move on to the next thing, which is Darling in the Franxx. So,
oh yeah,
episode 16, which is appropriately called Days of Our Lives, because we were talking about soap operas before. This was kind of a soap opera too. So in the aftermath of that battle at the Grand Crevasse, the council meets to discuss their future intentions, and they talk about how something called Ringhorny is under like the final phase of its construction. It looks like a giant red weapon, which I'm sure will play a big role in the end of the show, but it's just like they're showing it to us now to know that it's coming. There's also a new OP this episode, but it's basically just the same song, like kind of remixed.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's slick though.
It is
like
nice.
The animation. Damn, I was impressed.
I think it was better than the first OP, but I don't think it's like particularly still like a great OP. It looks nice though. I agree.
Yeah, I skip OPs. I didn't even notice.
So meanwhile, the 13s are all still living in their mansion, which remained intact inside the ruins of Plantation 13 after like that huge hand came down. And it's been a month since the battle, so they're eating rations and conserving water because like a lot of their water is getting poisoned. And so one person who is behaving completely differently now is 02. She's like happy as a clam. They're all kind of acting differently.
Yes. Like they all kind of are not acting like themselves at all.
But like especially 02. Like she's like happily like doing chores and like checking Ikuno's fever with her by putting their foreheads together, like doing that like cutely, and like I don't know, it just seemed like she's done like a complete 180.
Yes, her and even everybody else, I feel like it's basically just them lying to themselves about the situation they're in.
Yeah, I think that's fairly
that
true.
was the point of it, because it does come to a point to where they're like, what the fuck are we all doing?
Yeah. It also comes up that Futoshi is on a diet now for some reason. This will play a role.
No, but it's not really a diet. It's almost like he's bulimic now or something.
Yeah, he's been binging and purging, we find out later. Yeah.
Well, he's been like throwing up after every meal. And I'm just like, what is this? And then they never mention it again. Yeah. And I'm like, what?
It has like one really escalating scene, and then it just stops there.
So we find out also that Dr. FranXX has ordered the supervisors like not to contact the kids whatsoever because it will ruin this whole experiment somehow. So this is the part where Mitsuru asks Kokoro if she'll give him a haircut. And while she does, he starts thinking aloud about like what he even really wanted from Hiro. Like, did he want an apology from him for like forgetting about their promise, or just a chance to forgive him? Or maybe by like setting himself against him, he was trying to find a niche for himself. And Kokoro tells him that she believes that the promise that he and Hiro made as kids is still real and can start over. And like Mitsuru tells her that hearing that from her makes him feel like he can do anything. And because he said that, Kokoro leans in and kisses him. And he kind of has like a horrified look on his face for a second. And then she like immediately apologizes and runs away. So in my opinion,
I mean, she does more than kiss him though. She like tries to take off his shirt too.
Yeah. Wait, was that this time or was that later? I can't remember.
Oh yeah. I think that was maybe next episode.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Maybe I'm getting my scenes
that's
mixed up.
later. Yes,
okay.
It's gonna go places. But yeah, in my opinion, this whole sequence is the show's like sort of attempt at pretending like they didn't actually code Mitsuru as a gay character for the first 15 episodes of this series, which they totally did. And now they're kind of like well, maybe not though. And it's like, ooh, what is this show trying to say? And it's only going to get messier, honestly.
Maybe he's bisexual
he
for one of
doesn't
the
have to be-
best looking girls on the show.
Yes, I mean,
He doesn't have to be
yes.
gay. He could be bi.
Yeah, but the fact that the show doesn't like outright state that, where he has the exact same backstory with Hiro, as we will find out that another character has with like a girl. And for some reason, she's clearly a lesbian, but he's not clearly gay. And it's kind of like, are they saying that being gay as a
not
child is
all
a phase that you
characters-
grow out of? Because it kind of seems like that's what they're trying to say.
I mean, they could be trying to say that, and if so, that's wrong.
Yeah.
But also, I like that they might have a bisexual character, because I don't think there are very many anime that I've seen that have bisexual characters.
Yeah.
Like some anime have
Good call.
gay characters.
Yeah.
So I mean, it might also be a good thing.
I think they're we're left as viewers to say like, oh, I guess he's bisexual now, but the show doesn't really make it clear. That's all I'm kind of complaining about. But yeah, so Hiro and 02 have a brief discussion while walking under some cherry trees about how they're perfectly happy to just stay like this forever, and they're not even antsy at all to get back to fighting. And then there's this like fan servicey scene with all the girls bathing together. They all have the perfectly placed long hair to cover their nipples, even though like 02 and Miku are like jumping all over each other. And then Leo, you noticed something weird about Miku, didn't you?
What's with the gray hair?
What don't
Is that supposed to signify that they're aging quickly, or
Yeah, maybe.
what?
I don't.
Because
kind
like
of
it's
zoomed
dropped
in
it
on
from
it.
this point on.
Yeah.
Well, they zoom in on it like really dramatically, and then they're just like,
yes.
"Oh, that never
They-
happened."
The show makes a big point about, just like you said, it zooms in on it, it gets the whole screen, and then Miku's like, oh, don't worry about it, and then 02 pretends to ignore it, and then it's just gone. I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
With a lot of things
Why?
in the show, you're kind of left to try and wonder, like, is this important, or is this just like a random thing that they pointed out for no reason? So I hope it has some importance, because they did make a big deal of it. I don't know.
Well, I'm hoping that all of these random puzzle pieces like are gonna come together in some epic way at the end.
hope so.
Because then
That would be
that
great.
would be amazing.
That would be
Yeah,
great.
because it's so interesting right now with all the little things they sprinkle at you.
Yeah.
You know.
So they're not sure how to fix their like water filtration issues. So like 02 comes up with the idea that they can just catch and cook their own food to fix the issues of eating like terrible rations and MREs over and over. So they have this short montage of happy moments, and like Ichigo thinks to herself that Hiro was actually right about 02 being a normal girl like they are, and she's kind of glad that things have turned out this way. So Ichigo continues to just like fade into being a character that doesn't matter whatsoever. I don't know. They sit down to eat, but this time Zorome stops them from praying to Papa, because he's like, hey guys, like we prepared this entire meal ourselves. Why would we give thanks to like our God if he didn't provide anything for us? So that was an interest. So they don't pray. And it seems like happy times for a moment until Zorome starts trying to force Futoshi to eat. And like, this is what we were talking about before. It turns out Futoshi has been forcing himself to throw up the food he's been eating. So he tries to show Zorome that he's fine and like he's going to eat some fish, but he can't like even choke it down. It's like he's sick to even taste it. So Zorome like kind of tears up after this and wonders like, why has Papa like cast us aside? Why hasn't he like contacted us? Like, where is everybody? And then like Hiro kind of gives everybody a heartfelt speech that basically resolves on him telling them like, there's more to our lives than piloting the FranXX, and I think we like truly belong here, and we can like have a life here alone if we have to. So yeah, in that night, Hiro is in 02's room, and she's like redrawing the entire picture book from her childhood from her memory. Because
she's fucking good.
Yeah, she is really good, and he's really bad. They make a good joke about like how he was drawing a page, and like she looks at it and it's like terrible, but she's like, she hugs it and she's like super happy because like she accepts it as part of the book because he drew it. And she says, like, I knew nothing about how to become human until, like, Hiro allowed her to become part of the group and saw all these people interact with each other, and she's, like, thanking him for that. So they have, like, a very cute scene together. But, yeah, at the very end, we hear a sound of, like, a monster calling out, and we see a flash of what looks like another 02.
Basically.
And since her name is 02, the one we know, I would bet money that this girl's name's 01, but we'll find out, I'm sure.
Her name is Princess of the Klaxosaurs.
Well, does it even say that in the next episode yet?
Well,
That's next episode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but
Yeah.
that may not be her only name. That's all I'm saying. Okay. So,
All right. Is there anything else anybody want to add to this one?
not really before we get into the next episode.
All right.
yeah, I've got some notes on the next episode, but I'm good with this one.
Yeah, I got the next one summed up pretty well, so we'll see how this goes. So, Kokoro wants to have a baby, so she tries seducing Mitsuru during one of his haircuts and gets interrupted by Zorome, who is like, "Why are you guys trying to stick your bodies together?" Which is one of the strangest ways I've ever heard that put.
Well, he doesn't. They're
know.
not supposed to know what sex is, except for
Right,
Kokoro,
so-
who has read the book on sex, I guess.
So it makes me wonder if they even know the difference between girls and guys. Like, they have a vagina and they have a penis. Like, do they even know this? I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't think they do. Like, based on the conversation they
Unless
have
they've
with...
accidentally walked in on each other.
Well, they did do
there
that in an
should be
earlier
no-
episode, but I don't know if they saw everything. Well,
Yeah.
the girls definitely saw their dicks. That would have been a good opportunity, honestly, for the girls to be like, "What the fuck are those?"
The fuck? Yeah, exactly.
Because when the nines show up and they have that big conversation,
Yeah.
they talk about how the only reason they have like
Genders.
this team have genders, which apparently the rest of them don't have, is because it's easier for them to pilot the FranXX when they have genders.
Yeah, it's like a requirement for piloting the FranXX.
Yeah, their FranXX are different than everybody else's, I guess, in some way. So, yeah. So, anyways, Mitsuri goes to do his water duty, and Hiro shows up, and they have a one-on-one conversation. During it, Mitsuri realizes he loves Kokoro, and the two return to the building they live in and find everybody in the sitting room. Zorome told them because he didn't understand what was going on, wanted to try to figure it out, and Kokoro admits to everybody she wants to have a baby. Nines have also showed up before this, and then they walk in on the meeting, and what they're there for is basically to get a report on what's going on over there, and then they do confront Kokoro about the book she had because she dropped it in the hallway during one random scene. The Nine's leader, because have they given us a fucking name yet for this guy?
9 Alpha, I guess.
No, that's it.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Well,
So,
I mean,
the nine-
they're supposed to only have number names, really, you know?
Yeah, but it gives me something to identify them by, at least. So 9 Alpha talks about how it's basically blasphemy to talk about reproduction, and it's disgusting. And that also two genders is only tolerated, like you just said, because it's necessary to pilot the FranXX. Before things get too out of hand, Nana and Hachi show up and take Kokoro to a briefing room. Kokoro argues, why is it we still have our reproductive organs if they are not supposed to mate? She kind of has a point, but what happens is it causes Nana to relapse back to her, quote, puberty stage. And apparently this is a bad thing. It makes her useless since her conditioning is wearing off. That's all they really go into it about.
Yeah.
Well, so what I thought was, did you guys... Okay, so I think... Because one of the lines that one of the nines says is like, if we all are gendered, then we all have to go back to conforming to one gender. And I kind of think what they're saying is at some point in the future, in this society, they all decided that genders were causing... The whole reason for sexism was genders. And so that's why they got rid of genders, is to get rid of sexism. That's how I read it.
Yeah, but when we met that old lady, we saw the old dude also, so they still had genders. Right?
I don't know. I just... that the way that they said it made me think that it had something to do with like getting rid of genders so they could get rid of sexism so everyone was equal in the society. But maybe that's just my hypothesis on what's going to end up being.
Yeah.
What all is behind this, because who fucking knows?
Okay, well, something
point.
interesting that may aid that to you happens in this second part, which I'll get to in a second. But anyways, the Alpha 9 actually watched Nana kind of break down, and he says he's going to report this to Papa anyways. But the second half of the episode, I can sum up pretty quickly, unless you guys have a one or thing or two you want to throw in there.
Not till later.
Okay, we find out 02's body can't make a baby, which may be important later.
Yeah.
Mitsuru confesses his feelings to Kokoro, and the two apparently definitely get it on.
They fucking.
How they knew what to do. I guess if you're never told, you eventually just figure out on your
Kokoro
own.
read
She
the
had
book on
that
it.
book.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh
So she
goddamn.
knows.
She knows what she's
like,
doing.
she's like, here, let me grab this heart thing, and you're gonna put it here.
And I bounce up and down.
Yeah, that'll be in the OVA episode. Don't worry, Leo.
Or you thrust, whatever you like.
Wait, you're gay?
So-
That's so weird. I didn't expect that.
Just close your eyes. It'll be fine.
And it's like, it makes me even wonder, like, the guys discovered masturbation yet? Because, he was just like, he was like 7 seconds into it and just like, just done. Okay, so anyways, after that, Papa sends an envoy to the Klaxor princess asking for surrender, but she kills them and interestingly calls them human wannabes.
Yes.
And like she removes the mask from one of them, but you only see like black.
Yeah, they're
So-
definitely not human. Like 100%.
Okay.
They're like aliens, or at least
It's
some of them.
interesting.
Yeah.
This is just
Yeah.
another little clue, like a little sprinkle clue, where you don't know what the fuck it is, but it's
Yeah,
obviously
like
something.
there's so many stinging questions. Like hopefully at least by the final episode, everything ties in together like you want, Kat.
Yeah.
Because it's just
I hope
crazy
so,
right
too.
now.
Because I want this to, because this could be so good, right?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
if they tie this up right.
Yeah, if you, right now ranking it, I don't think the rankings would be too high. But if they tie everything together in the end, in like the last 2 episodes, everybody's rankings are going to go up. I mean, honestly. So after the envoy is like fucking wrecked, Papa then says he will annihilate them using their own creation, and then that's when the 9 shows up and give their report.
In space.
and then
I
also-
think they were in space,
And
right?
they were in space orbiting the planet. And also, Hero is apparently growing horns now.
Blue horns, too.
Oh, like little tiny horns, like itty bitty horns.
And they're
kind of
blue
adorable.
tinted, which feeds into the red Oni, blue Oni story that often shows up
Yep.
in anime.
Very true. Very
So
true.
yeah. It also, like, my theory now is because the way the red Oni blue story goes is like the blue Oni makes it so the red Oni, who is like the violent one who typically can't stay with society, the blue Oni like takes, like, pretends to be bad and like tells them that the red Oni like saved people and like stuff. Like, my theory is like Hero's gonna die at the end of the show, so that 02 can live with everybody else in society.
And be a human. Yeah.
And that
Like
might
she
not
wants to.
happen. Like, it may just be that this is the whole red Oni, blue Oni thing has already been, like, done in the show now that they've come together. But I'm not sure. I mean, they may carry it on to the full end of that story. We'll see.
Yeah, if they stick to the story, then yeah, but there's no hint that they even will or have to. So
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, it's...
Oh,
what, Cat?
I really liked
Yes.
your last point, Bcom. Like,
Yes.
why don't you get on that? Because I totally agree with you.
All right, yeah, the
Go
show
ahead.
at this point seems to be trying to like reinforce old gender norms, in my opinion, that like relationships between men and women are the only ones that matter because they can lead to reproduction. And like Papa's like genderless future is painted as evil and something that we need to like regress back from to regain our humanity as a society. And then
Well,
yeah.
but I really do think, once again, this is like almost a commentary on Japan's stress right now about gender roles in society, right? Because they're going through this whole confusion right now about women in the workplace and, gender roles and what it all means, because they're kind of behind us. And I think this is almost their way of, this is like how they feel as a society right now.
Yes.
Kind of. They're like, well, we don't like this equality among sexes thing because
And I agree with that's definitely what the show is trying to say. I just think the show got a little sloppy in making the couple that does this Mitsuru and Kokoro. Because Mitsuru, like, when she cuts his hair into like a more normal, like, anime guy hairstyle, I swear that was her like cutting the gay out of him. Like, that's what it came off of like to me, because like he usually has this like slicked back like hairstyle, like very refined, and then like when she cuts it down, that's when he's like all over her and wants to have sex with a woman all of a sudden after like wanting to ride with Hiro for the early part of this series. So I don't know what that, it just feels like a very sloppy metaphor that I feel like is offending a lot of people. And I think I've seen episode 18. I don't want to say anything about it because there's plenty to talk about next week. Like, it only continues in episode 18 with other characters.
I'm agreeing with you, but I don't feel as strongly as portraying him as like really gay at the beginning.
It was kind of unclear.
Because I think he could be bisexual. I
Yeah.
still stand by that. He could be bi.
Yeah.
So I'm not as offended, but I do definitely think this is totally a commentary on how Japanese society as a whole feels on gender roles right now.
Yeah,
Like this is totally what this anime is.
some of them are like,
Yeah.
this is like Shinzo Abe's propaganda to children to like, please have children. Look at how fun it is to have sex.
We're gonna find out that this was like funded by the prime minister all along or whatever.
Yeah, but at this point, they've completely dropped the hints at the lesbian aspect. Like they've hinted at it twice, and then just like nothing. 2 or 3 times, I think.
Wait for next episode.
Oh
Yeah,
god.
this whole anime is just gonna end up being funded by the government. They're like, this was our last chance.
Jesus Christ.
All right, well,
We wanted them to have babies.
we should get into this last part of the discussion because we finished up all the shows.
Yes.
And so this is the part where we would do mid-season cuts. So there's a couple shows to talk
Dun,
about
dun,
that we thought were
dun.
on the bubble, right? So Mahou Shoujo Ore was the first one. Like, I'm not sure about it. Like I said earlier in this episode, like I feel like it's sort of like meandering around in the middle and it hasn't really established what it super wants to be. I still think it has its funny moments, but then there were jokes that like turned me off as well. So I don't know. On this one, like I don't feel like super strongly either way about cutting it or not. So I'm going to kind of leave it up to you guys, honestly.
I've just
'cause-
been flat out not enjoying it. So like I would like to replace it with something.
And I said in the beginning that the reason I put it as a soft lock is that I wanted, if it ended up being something you guys weren't enjoying, to be able to switch it. Because as we talked about early on, Bcom didn't pass Pretty Derby. And so I wanted you guys to have some flexibility on this one because I knew this may not be your kind of show. So I'm fine with you guys picking something else. It would be as we said before, you guys would have to decide, since you're cutting this one, what my new show would be.
Well, okay, so both of you have
But-
stated you don't want to make a decision on it.
Basically.
Well, okay,
And
I have a
want to do
decision,
something else.
but I mean, like I said, it seems like Leo doesn't like it.
Yeah.
And it seems like you don't like it, Bcom. So it seems like
Yeah.
we're switching it out with something. I've made some comments on possible ones, but in the end, you guys should get to pick because we picked Leo's like stand-in
Yeah, that's true.
last season. So it's only
So-
fair.
So, okay, I have 2 shows. I have Tadakun, Never Falls in Love or whatever. And then I did watch 3 episodes of Legend of Galactic Heroes.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of wary about that one because it just seems like so much to try to cover. So, Bcom,
I mean,
you got one of them you
it wouldn't be
kinda
that
like
bad
better?
because like Kat and I have both watched like the first. Well, actually, Kat's watched like the first 105 episodes of the first like OVA series, I think. So like almost the entire thing, and I've watched like the full first season. So I kind of know like everything that's supposedly going to happen in Legend Galactic Heroes. But the interesting thing about watching it has been that they have departed from what the OVAs did to stay truer to the original novels. And so actually like things are actually going down a bit differently, though it's hitting a lot of the same like plot points. And just in general, I think it's been like a really good adaptation so far. So I would not be against doing that. Tadakun, on the other hand, I think is a strong show, like really strongly directed. But I think Kat and I had a conversation where we're already covering Wotakoi, which is another solid like romance. So it was like, should we like pick up another romance halfway? I don't know. I think it would probably be easier to pick up Legend of Galactic Heroes because even though it might seem like a lot to you, Leo, like it starts to like break down things into smaller parts in the next few episodes that you haven't seen yet. So you can focus on the characters individually and see what they're all about. So I guess if I was going to say we would replace it with one, it would be Legend.
Kat, do you agree?
I mean, I'm fine with it. Like I told Bcom, I've started reading the first few novels because there's like I think 8 books on Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Yeah.
And I picked up the first 2, and I'm through the first one and I'm into the second one, and so it would be interesting to have commentary on it. I also personally think My Hero Academia would be good to cover because it's gotten really good.
Yeah.
But this is, I mean, like I said, we picked Leo, so it's up to you two.
All right. Well, it sounds like we should go with Legend of Galactic Heroes as a replacement for Mahou Shoujo Ore.
All right. Sounds good to me. Maybe we'll be wrong. Maybe Mahou Shoujo Ore will be fucking hilarious from here on out. Who knows? We'll keep watching. We'll let you know.
You will have to tell me to watch the episode because I'm not watching anything from now
I'll
on.
definitely finish it.
We'll continue to watch this because I think it's fucking hilarious. But I'll let you know.
Another one that was on the borderline was my was it my hard pick or soft? No, it's hard pick. It was Hisone to Masotan, which I think I agree with like Leo and Kat in certain points. Like this show has been not nearly as impressive as I thought it would be going in. Like being a Studio Bones show, like an original, like about like fighter pilots. Like they've only sort of like touched the surface of like the issues I wanted to get into, like with Eru's like whole like flashback about how she was treated and like that stuff. But like there's also like a lot of like weird, goofy stuff that's like, okay, what are they doing in this show? I'm like still inclined to keep it though, because like I really like Studio Bones. I think like even though like the animation overall hasn't been amazing as like a Bones show can be, like there's some really good character animation that's very funny at times. And I'm just kind of curious to see like what the ultimate like end of this show is, like where it ends up. I don't know how you guys feel.
So we know what I think about it because I already said it earlier, but I don't think there's anything really better that I've been caught up with to really replace it with.
Well, personally, if I had my way, and this is your hard lock, so like it's up to you, obviously. But if I had my way, I would want you to replace it with My Hero Academia because I think it's much more interesting.
Yeah.
But that's just my personal opinion. So.
Yeah, the problem is like I don't love My Hero Academia. Like so it would be really hard for me to do that because like as like Hero Academia has been fine, like it's been pretty good, but it also has like issues. It is I don't know. Maybe it's more interesting to talk about, but like everyone is watching it already. I don't know, which is part of a good reason to cover it, honestly. But I don't know. Like I don't feel like I have much to say about that show that is like not being said already.
Well, I mean, I guess you could try switching Steins Gate to your hard lock and we could all cover it so you don't have to cover it every time.
Oh, what?
Because I think that's part of the reason you don't want to.
I don't know. Yeah.
But no, I mean, it's your hard lock. You can do what the fuck you want. I just thought I'd put in my 2 cents.
Okay.
Yeah. At this point in Hisone to Masotan, I just want to see if it's actually going to play out this part about women being sexually humiliated or whatever you want to call it in the workplace, because you to me Bcom, because I'm like I fucking hate it. I'm like, why the fuck is this in the show?
Right.
And you're like, I think the show's going to address it, and I want to see.
I don't think it will at all.
I will, and I want to see if it
failure.
addresses it by the end. If it doesn't, then I'm calling fucking bullshit on this show.
If
It's not
Zaito
gonna
doesn't get his
address it.
comeuppance by the end of the show, that is a big mistake. Yeah.
It's just gonna be a flop. It's just gonna be some BS about friendship and finding yourself, and then it's not gonna go
for
anywhere.
the fan service for the adults that watched it with their little kids. I feel like.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
There's one other show we could talk about.
Nope.
So Doreiku is Leo's
It's my
hard lock.
It's not going anywhere.
So here's the thing about Doreiku, and Leo and I have had like a million conversations about this. Like, obviously.
Okay, actually, Kat brought this up first. It wasn't me. I just said, okay, there's a decent agreement there. I see that.
So like, yeah, like in the past, like you were upset with me when I kept like Suki ga Kure in our reviews because like you really did not like that show like at all.
God, I hate it. I felt like nothing happened the entire fucking time. That was my big thing.
So I feel like the same exact way about Doreiku. Like I have the same level of hatred for this show like that you have for that show. But here's the big difference. So in like spring 2017,
you actually tried to bring up stuff that complain about, and all I can say about Suki Akari is nothing happened this fucking goddamn episode. I skipped an entire episode and missed
No,
nothing.
you did miss things, like you just didn't realize it.
You cannot do that with Doreiku because you will be completely lost because shit happens, plot progresses. It's just not stupid little dumb romances that you should not believe in. Okay,
so
go
Suki
ahead.
ga Kure
Sorry.
was the third highest rated show on MAL of the spring 2017 season.
Oh, fuck ratings.
It was the 7th most
Seriously?
popular show. Doreiku is the 50th highest rated show on MAL from this season. And 26th most popular. So it's like not only that like you're the only one in the universe except Kat who likes this, like
Okay, not the only one.
Like literally it is though. Like I went to the last Reddit thread on this Doreiku. 10 people commented. Like nobody is watching the show.
Okay, Doreiku does a whole. Their subject matter is a way more controversial stuff, so it makes people uncomfortable. So I understand why people just abandon ship and get away from it. That makes sense.
People like controversy. People watch controversial shows all the time.
Yeah, but not as crazy as Doreiku will do. I think
it's not crazy. I think it's not as stupid as Doreiku. Because Doreiku's really stupid. It's just so stupid,
Damn.
Leo. I'm sorry, man. The show is so
but
dumb.
It's an edge show. Like,
it's so dumb.
it's gonna be a little edgy. You just don't like edge shows.
No, that is not it at all. Like, Inuyashiki had smart moments in that show.
You didn't like that show.
I didn't like it, but at least I'll
hated
grant it had smart
Inuyashiki.
moments. And that's why a lot of people watched it. Doreiku is just
The
dumb as
whole
dog shit all the way through.
Inuyashiki was on. You just acted disgusted every time I brought it up.
And Leo,
in
you
chat.
kept shows
You're
like
just
Buso Shoujo Machiavellianism, and then like Convenience Store Boyfriends. You dropped at the halfway point, and like I understood why you liked parts of those shows. Like I understood.
Convenience Store Boyfriends was my attempt at a romance after Tsukigakure, and I didn't really like
obviously
anything
you picked
about
really
that
badly.
show.
Yeah, like obviously you don't understand what a good romance is. Like that's what I'm coming to learn.
I don't.
And Busho Shoujo, like there were fun moments among like the stupidity. Like I understood what you liked about that show. Doreiku, I just for the life of me cannot understand what you see in it.
It's psychological, and
it's not. It's psychological for retarded people is what it is. That's really what it is.
No, from our discussion this episode, I understand why I had explained episodes to you of why you should think
understand
this, or maybe
everything about the episodes,
no,
Leo.
You did not.
I think you're missing the bigger picture. And I actually had a question for both of you guys that I forgot to ask at the end of the Doreiku review. If the SCM was a real life device, would you guys use one?
No. Absolutely not.
Kat's thinking.
Why is Kat contemplating this?
Because
I would never get caught up in this game.
If other people are using it like against you, then like you've got to defend yourself, right?
But that's not what they're doing.
Kind of like
that's not what they're doing in this show.
Okay, they do get people tricked into it. Say Kat and I got tricked into it, then yes, I would become fully involved because obviously I don't have a fucking choice at this point.
Yes, if you have no choice,
think about how Aya got involved, right? Like Aya decided to get involved because she felt like she had to at that point.
I don't think she felt like she had to.
I wouldn't do it. But if I was tricked into it somehow, then afterwards, yes, I would do like what Seiya did and try to at least get a better slave master or eventually become a master myself because I'm stuck in the fucking game anyways. I might as well make the best of the situation.
Every other like podcast I've listened to talk about Doreiku, this is how their segment on Doreiku has gone. Is anybody watching that slave show? No. Moving on. That's like all the time they give this show, and that's all the time this show deserves because it is so fucking infantile and stupid.
If they're not watching it, they have nothing to say.
You are in a rage quit about this show.
Rightfully so. It's the worst show of the season by far.
It is not the worst show of the season.
Yes, it is. It really is, though.
There are worse shows.
Yeah, Mahou Shoujo Ore is a worse show.
No, it's not.
Oh, fuck you.
See?
Fuck you, Leo.
It's definitely
not. Fuck off.
Maybe like
Don't
Dances with Dragons is worse.
Show.
I don't know. Anyway, I've said my piece on this show. Leo, I understand you like it, so it's your hard luck. So you get to keep it around.
Okay, so we're just changing the one show, I guess, right?
Yeah, we'll change Mahou Shoujo.
Cool. Before I do the outro, anything else?
Stuck listening to Hisone.
All right, Kat says she's still listening to Hisone, so... But everybody, thank you for listening. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe on YouTube and to get updates on new podcasts or videos. And follow us on Twitter at Nerdom and Other for updates as well. And we'll see everybody later.
Peace.
Bye.